Hello, everybody. Welcome to Torn Tuesday. I'm your host, Justin. And normally I'm joined by Cliff, but he's not here because that second dose of the vaccine is a doozy. And it doesn't mean you should hesitate to get it. But I'm just telling you, when I got mine, I was wiped out for like a week. And Cliff just got his second dose. So he is feeling his superpowers, and he's going to live as long as an ent. Now you may noticed my eyes have seen the coming of the glory of the Lord. No, my eyes have seen the light of the trees of Valinor. We posted a week ago that I wanted Galadriel eyes for this show, and I have it. Let's zoom in on the eyes. Hold on. That's cool, right? We got Galadriel eyes. Got the lights of Valinor. Not lights of Elendil. That's in the bottle. The lights of Valinor. The trees of Valinor. So I did find it. Thank you to everybody who replied on Twitter with links to the secrets. I'm so happy now because I feel like an elf. I'm just getting ready for Lord of the Rings on Prime. I gotta look my best. Princess Toy Nerd, I'm looking at the chat. Hello, everybody. I see all the regulars. RJ says, I can see the scourge of the Shire within your cortex. That's. Wait, hold on. Um, Andrew says, I had the Pfizer vaccine and didn't have any significant side effects. That's the one I got. I got Pfizer. The first one was cool. I didn't even feel it the next day. The second one was cool. I didn't even feel it the same day or the next day. But like the next 3 or 4 days after that, I don't know, man. I don't know if it was the anxiety just burning out of my system, a year's worth of anxiety. I don't know what it was, but I was just out of it. Chris Saint in the chat and Moderna gang here. Good to see you. Oh, I think this is the Chris Saint that we just retweeted on Twitter, whose cat is reading The Hobbit right now. That's awesome. So the cat is actually ahead of me in the reading of this book. One of these days I'll read this book. I probably should have read it for Tolkien Reading Day. Did you guys read anything for Tolkien Reading Day? Sean has a Moderna. Aravandi got Moderna. Man, everybody got Moderna. DH Lord 64 says just wrapped up the 4K Two Towers. Still stunning. My personal favorite of the trilogy is Two Towers, and we can go into great debates. I will defend that movie till my dying day. That is my favorite. I think it is the best made movie of the trilogy. So it's gosh, you guys, seeing all of you in the chat say that you got Pfizer or you got Moderna, um, I'm kind of, man, I feel so cool. I don't feel cool. I feel so happy that we are in a community that prides itself on health and safety and our love of our neighbors and our love of our family. And um, this is just great. I can't imagine. It's just the social media is just full of negativity and debates. Everyone feels like they have to debate everything at all times. There's always a counterpoint, and it's just great to see everybody in our chat room, um, you know, getting their doses. We're gonna be we're I can't wait to see you all in person at the next conventions. No, I mean, so the next question is San Diego Comic Con is canceled in July. They want to do something in November, but it's not confirmed yet. I have a feeling that Dragon Con Atlanta is going to try to do something. And you know what? as much as I love you guys, and as much as I'm vaccinated, and many of you will be by September when Dragon Con is, those elevators and those hotels are so sweaty and so claustrophobic. I'm just not comfortable yet being in a 5 minute elevator with all y'all or all of them or who else. Um, so let's take this year off of conventions, shall we? Um, and I still don't know how I'm gonna feel about Thanksgiving. Um, I think the debate is happening all over the place around San Diego Comic Con's Thanksgiving thing. Look, everyone missed out on the holidays last year. We're finally going to be at a point by November where Thanksgiving is the first major American holiday that families are supposed to get together. I mean, that's what you do at Thanksgiving or Friendsgiving or whatever. And the idea of not being with your family that weekend, I don't know, man. Not this year. Not that weekend and not this year. Um, so, uh, So this is great. So let's just get into it. I asked everybody on Twitter today. I said, "What do y'all want me to talk about?" With 59% of the votes, it looks like everybody wants to know show updates from Amazon, which we have a lot. Second, in 22%, release the PJ cut. I don't know if we've talked about that on this show, but since Cliff's not here, I can talk all the smack I want. Lord of the Rings publishers merge at 17%, and then Middle Earth March Madness. So you know what? We're going to go in this order, and by the end of the show, I hopefully will be joined by some of our folks at the One Ring, and we can show you that Middle Earth March Madness voting has just started, and we're going to debate all of the entries in Middle Earth March Madness. It's a simple voting exercise, but it's always super fun, and we had a great time last year. So first off, let's start with the news. Hey, look at that. Oh, before we get into the Amazon show updates, I want to appreciate you guys for watching my show, because right now, at the same time, the Visual Effects Society is giving Peter Jackson a Lifetime Achievement Award presented by Kate Blanchett. They're doing that live. It is a ticketed, paid for event, and I won't feel bad if you want to skip over and watch Kate Blanchett talk and talk with Peter Jackson all remotely, virtually, and this is new. So, and this is live. So I'm not gonna feel bad. We're gonna archive this podcast on Facebook and YouTube and everything like that. So Kyle said, you guys retweeted my Thranduil statue. Kyle, you, Chris Saint, I retweeted. Kyle, right? Retweet. Is this how I'm supposed to get viewers to this show? I just keep retweeting cool things. So you guys keep tagging me in tweets. Keep tagging the One Ring in tweets. And I guess that's how you grow a show. We got our first text message. Again, the phone number, if you want to text me, 530-64-FRODO. Yeah, that's really my phone number, 530-64-FRODO. Question is, do you have confidence that every little thing will be all right? Do you have confidence that the Amazon show will be a hit? I do. So let's get into it. Amazon awoke this week for Tolkien Reading Day, and they posted this picture. This is the only picture that they posted, and the official Amazon LOTR on Prime account posted this on Tolkien Reading Day, basically confirming Fellowship of Fans' early rumor that Wayne Chi Yip, and I might be saying that wrong, Wayne Shea Yip, I don't know. Ugh, I feel bad because I pronounce everything wrong. Ask Cliff. You guys know. I butchered that one episode a few weeks ago. So this confirms Wayne Chi Yip is a director on Lord of the Rings. They posted this clapperboard. Director of photography is Aaron Morton, a famous New Zealand photographer, cinematographer. We can get into we can do a technical rundown of all the camera stuff that they think, but I don't think that's accurate or anything. Um, uh, but the interesting thing, I just have to point this out because it's exciting that Amazon's Lord of the Rings is finally waking up. You know what this means? They've probably hired a marketing agency to finally tweet stuff, and they didn't just tweet this. Amazon Studios tweeted, "Welcome to the family, Wayne." Um, which was weird because Wayne has already shot episodes of Wheel of Time for Amazon Studios, and he's also shot episodes of Hunters for Wheel of Time with Al Pacino. So Amazon Studios is very familiar with Wayne. He's been in in the family for 2 years now. So it's weird for Amazon Studios to say, "Welcome to the family." Like, is this is coming out now with Amazon? Um, Sean says marketing was hired March 1st. They got a new marketing executive, and he's been interviewing and hiring people. Kyle says yes, this definitely sounds as though they're getting their head switched on with regards to marketing and publicity. So this is awesome. Amazon has awakened. They're confirming rumors that Fellowship of Fans and us have been reporting, and we expect more confirmations in the coming weeks. Now, we wouldn't be an internet radio show or an internet video show if we didn't have positive and negative views. So let me take the negative view since Cliff's not here and we can't balance each other. How y'all gonna post this photo on Tolkien Reading Day, use the hashtag Tolkien Reading Day, and then literally black out the only words on the board that have anything to do with Tolkien and reading? We know it says Lord of the Rings Project. We know it says the Lord of the Rings Project. So how are you going to black out the words The Lord of the Rings? How are you going to black out the only thing that could possibly be related to Tolkien and still use the hashtag Tolkien Reading Day? Just post this the next day. Wait a couple days. But glomming on to Tolkien Reading Day hashtag for a movie related thing is not good PR. It's the right thing at the wrong time. And this is everything that the fans are concerned about, is that does Amazon and the people in charge truly understand Tolkien? Not only do they understand Tolkien, do they truly understand what this culture and this fan base is? And we notice things like this. So respect Tolkien Reading Day and post about Tolkien's books. And then post this the next day. Okay. So Kyle says they should have had a copy of the script in the sand. That would have been good. At least that's something to read. You know? Scuba Steve says they blacked it out because it probably doesn't say Lord of the Rings Project. Oh, Scuba Steve. What if this says... What if this is a Wheel of Time clapperboard? What if they blacked it out because it's not from Lord of the Rings and they're pulling, they're hoodwinking us, they're bamboozling us. Although I do think this is a Lord of the Rings clapperboard because the font that they're using for the director name and the DP's name is the Lord of the Rings font. Oh, separate controversy. Our friend, what's his name? Matt the Hutt? Peter the Hutt. Peter the Hutt. If you Google his name, Peter the Hutt, you'll find that the font that they used on their clapperboard, Amazon, the richest company in the history of the world, is using a bootlegged, fan-made Lord of the Rings font made by Peter the Hutt. It's hosted on his personal website. New Line went after him early on, and they said, as long as you don't monetize this, as long as you don't charge people to use this font, and as long as no one's making money, we're going to turn a blind eye. So he's hosted it for 2 decades, all of these ring bearer fonts. And you would think that Amazon, the richest company in the world, would have paid New Line for the actual font, or they would have paid a font company, Font Foundry, to make their own Lord of the Rings font. So here we are on the clapperboard, and they're using a bootleg fan font. So I don't know, man. It's just, one great thing and 3 bad things. I'm so sorry. Like, I'm just so sorry. Like, ugh. People in the chat room are saying, are you negative on the show? No, I'm actually the most positive energy for this show versus Cliff and everybody else. They all have major valid concerns. And I'm just saying that a lot of these like marketing and PR mistakes and gaffes could easily be, I don't know, well thought through. Look, Amazon, if you want help on this, just hire me. Like, I'm happy to help. This could have easily, if someone was in the room knowing the importance of Tolkien Reading Day, they could have easily just said, hey, chill on that. So shout out to Peter the Hutt, unofficially on board. He's, you know what? The fan font maker, Peter the Hutt, is as much on board with Amazon's show as the artists are, as we've found. Let's go. They'll be using Anaron next. Yeah, that's the other thing. Good call, Kyle. He made a font based on the evil people. So if this show is about Sauron and the development of the rings and distribution of the rings, then why not use the evil font? Arna has tweeted, he's texted, and he keeps asking the same question. I already answered your question. I read your question aloud on the show. He's asking, do you have confidence every little thing will be all right? Isn't that a song? Isn't that a Bob Marley song? Everything's gonna be all right. Yes. I have strength. You know what? I talk about the wealth of Amazon a lot, but I truly think that we are more likely to succeed because we have the richest man in the history of the world funding this show. And anything less is undeserving of Tolkien. Jill Miller says, I think it's too much to try to figure out about a clapboard. I did work for Game of Thrones, and the actual title was not used while it was being made. Same with Star Wars, Blue Harvest. Yeah, this is true. So I guess Amazon blacked out the name because they don't want anyone to know what the secret code word is. Although we've heard some of the code words, rumored some of the code words, but we're keeping our mouths shut on some of those secret code words that we know are being used because we want to keep getting scoops. So Fellowship of the Fans, don't leak that. Hold on some of that stuff. The other thing Fellowship of Fans posted about this weekend is he has independently confirmed that there are going to be 2 blue wizards in the show. We've been reporting on this for several months. Our current theory is Kingdom of Heaven's Ghassan Masud and Christopher Nolan's one of Christopher Nolan's favorite actors are going to be the Blue Wizards, and they totally look the part and they make sense. And so anyway, it's great to hear that our rumors about the Blue Wizards being involved in the show are being doubled up by Fellowship of Fans independently. Speaking of other rumors, Russell Crowe has just announced that he is in Thor: Love and Thunder, which has been shooting in New Zealand and Australia. So, does this mean that our rumors of Russell Crowe being in Lord of the Rings is off? I don't know. A lot of people on Twitter were saying, you know what, this makes sense. You know, if he's in Thor, he's probably playing a medieval type looking character. You know, like all those guys look like old, Norwegian gods and stuff like that. So maybe his long curly hair is for that movie. So Matt, the point is, Russell Crowe's been in New Zealand. I think this has nothing to do with Lord of the Rings. I think he's still in Lord of the Rings, and I'm excited. I'm more excited for Thor: Love and Thunder now. But the day after this news was posted, last night, Russell tweeted that his father died on an airplane at 95 years old. So we send our deepest condolences. That's got to be tough. The news reports are saying that he was he was in the air on an airline, and passengers and flight attendants tried resuscitating him while in flight, but he didn't make it. So Russell Crowe just tweeted that his father is a well-known person in Australia and in New Zealand. His father is native New Zealander, and then ended up moving to Australia about 25 years ago. So they were very close. Crowe is originally from New Zealand, yeah. So I think Russell Crowe is in the show. I think he's in the pilot of the show for the first 2 episodes. And I think Russell Crowe gets Sean Beaned in the first season. No spoilers. We don't know. We're just guessing. But I'm saying, if you want to make sure that everyone and their mothers watch Lord of the Rings, including my mother, she loves Russell Crowe, you put Russell Crowe in the show. As a fan, I'm totally on board with Russell Crowe being on the show. I think he's the perfect caliber of triple A class acting talent and star power. I think he's just the perfect addition. And we know that the Lord of the Rings 2 episode pilot wrapped like 4 months ago. So Bayona's been back in Spain doing post-production on his episodes. So it makes total sense that Russell Crowe filmed his parts, and he's already done with his parts. And he went after he finished with Lord of the Rings, he went down the street and filmed with Waika on Thor: Love and Thunder, and from there he went over to Australia and has been filming another show. So I'm pretty sure Russell Crowe has been so busy. He's in the right country at the right time. So I have no doubt he filmed Lord of the Rings, he filmed Thor, and he's still... Did I say Waika? I meant Taika Waititi. Sorry. This is what I get for hosting and teching the show when Cliff's not here. Thank you. So I still think he's in the show. The next thing that we should say about the Lord of the Rings update is I think we've discussed this in another episode, but the way TV works is that every director is given 2 or 3 episodes, right? It's very rare to have something um like WandaVision where you have one director for the whole series. So that's extremely rare. But most of the time, it's like Kevin Smith has been brought on to direct a bunch of CW shows, and he comes in for like 2 episodes at a time. So he's done like, Supergirl, and he's done a bunch of stuff at the CW. And there's a bunch of like great directors doing great stuff all over television. And they come in for 2 episodes and then they're out. 2 episodes and out. So J.A. Bayona did 2 episodes. The first two, the pilot. Wayne Yip is doing 2 or 3 episodes. I believe Amazon said 3 episodes. There's 8 episodes in the first season, so that's 5. So that means we got 2 more directors. We got 1 or 2 more directors. The rumor is there's a woman directing 2 episodes, episodes 6 and 7, and then who knows who directs episode 8. Usually the final episode of a season, of the first season, is directed by the same director as the first episode of the season. So usually it would make sense for J.A. Bayona to start the series, do the first 2 episodes, let a bunch of other people work, and then do the last episode and tie up all those storylines that he was working on. And look, these are just averages. Some directors do 4 episodes. Some directors do, split half and half, whatever, like that. So, the directors. So there's 3 to 4 directors for the first season. Supposedly they were shooting seasons 1 and 2 back to back. The writers were using the quarantine time to write the second season so they could film it at the same time. And RJ is reminding me that Deborah Chow is currently directing all episodes of Obi-Wan. So this is where we get into it with the fans. Okay. So Peter Jackson was a singular visionary for Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Right? J.R.R. Tolkien was a singular visionary writer. He refused to collaborate with anybody. Christopher Tolkien inherited that trait from his father. And anything past Silmarillion, Christopher Tolkien, I think, was the single author. And as we know, Christopher Tolkien held the creative rights to Middle Earth with an iron fist, and no one was allowed to play in Middle Earth against his father's wishes. But that's another story. So there's something to be said about Middle Earth being a singular creative vision, and we have one director doing Star Wars Obi-Wan. We have one director doing all of WandaVision. We had one director doing all of the Dark Crystal reboot, Age of Resistance. These are all top tier, well respected series by the fans and by the public. So it's a little distressing that Amazon, in their infinite resources and unlimited money, could not find or was unwilling to give one creative visionary the opportunity to run with this. This is just my opinion. I'm reading your chat. I'd love to hear your guys' opinion. So the question is, do you think having multiple directors for the first season of Lord of the Rings is a positive or a negative? Because up to now, we've gotten used to the idea of a singular vision. But television is a whole new storytelling medium. So we've never been in this position before. Kim Rudolph is saying, bruh, you forgot the all important showrunner role. It's not like each director does whatever they want. The showrunner role ensures continuity of the whole story from start to end, no matter who's directing. I have my own issues with the showrunners of the show. We've talked about this many times. Amazon, again, the richest company in the history of the world, who supposedly could get anyone they want anywhere in the world. They chose two people who have never produced anything. Basically, a couple fanboys from Utah that have never produced anything, that have never written anything, that have never made anything in their entire life. There isn't even a YouTube video of a college reel. These guys, the showrunners that they've entrusted with Tolkien's legacy, are complete unknowns. Is that good? Is that bad? Tolkien himself vetted his publishers. Christopher Tolkien vetted all efforts, and it's just, I don't know. We don't. There is no strong singular creative vision at all in this series yet, and we don't know who's representing Tolkien's legendarium on set. So it's look, the challenge of television is too many cooks in the kitchen, too many heads butting together. Game of Thrones, John D. Ruddy, great to see you in the chat, says Game of Thrones had multiple directors and the first 4 seasons were excellent. That's the other thing. Game of Thrones, the first 4 seasons were excellent because they had books and a storyline to adhere to, right? When they ran out of books to adapt, that's when the show went off the rails. And that's what's terrifying about this show, because there is no book about the Second Age. There are 2 chapters in the Silmarillion. There's some stories in Unfinished Tales, and there's appendice pages, not even chapters, pages of appendices. So we're in the same position that Game of Thrones season 5 through 8 were, which is they've run out of books. What story are they telling? That gives me pause too. Elf VR04 in the chat room says The Mandalorian did well with all the different directors. 100% Mandalorian was a great example of top tier creative directors working at the best of the top of their abilities. But again, you had 2 extremely strong and powerful showrunners at the top, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, that had earned the trust of fans all the way up to that point. You knew that they were in charge. You knew Dave Filoni was in charge. Who's the Dave Filoni for Lord of the Rings? Who is it? Answer that question, and a lot of anxiety goes away. Yeah, Kaylin Griffin, who is in charge of the Tolkien franchise now that we don't have Christopher? The DC debacle with Zack Snyder is an example of the dangers of script by committee. Yes, Dave Gentry says Star Wars, the first part of the Disney ownership of Star Wars became a dumpster fire because of no plan. Snyder Cut and Star Wars definitely suffered because there was a plan, but then they backed off from the plan. They hire Lord and Miller, and then they fire Lord and Miller. It's like, hey, we want a comedy. Oh, we don't want a comedy. Oh, you hired comedy directors. That's what happened with The Hobbit. What happened to to Lord and Miller on Solo is what happened to Peter Jackson on The Hobbit. And this goes into our third talking point of the day. Again, back on my Twitter thing. We tweeted that Hobbit, Battle of Five Armies was on TV, and I was just like, they did Toriel dirty. I mean, I was ready for her to kill Bog and maybe even kill Azog. I don't know. Instead, they throw her off a cliff, and Legolas has to Super Mario his way to her rescue. I thought, what a waste of a character. And we know for a fact that Warner Brothers executives ordered reshoots to add in the love triangle and give us more Legolas, because under the Warner Brothers executives, this is before the Snyder cut or the Snyder stuff. Warner Brothers executives thought that Orlando Bloom was the biggest star in the world because Pirates of the Caribbean trilogy had just made Disney a bunch of money. They thought Orlando Bloom was the biggest star in the history of the world. They paid him a ton of money to be in The Hobbit, and they said, we're going to get every dollar of value out of Orlando Bloom. People want to see Orlando Bloom. And so they said, put more Orlando in the third Hobbit movie. And that's not what anybody wanted. We've talked to Evangeline Lilly at Comic-Con and other places, and she has said that she did not sign up for Love Triangle. It was never in there. And when they called her back for reshoots for the third Hobbit movie, they had her film all these love triangle things and she's like, she was so angry. Evangeline Lilly was so angry at the love triangle reshoots that when Marvel came to the table with Ant-Man, she put it in her contract that she cannot be the center of the love triangle. So power to good actors and good agents negotiating good contracts and knowing that you can push and pull. So there's just, I don't know, man. Peter Jackson just got screwed on so many things. If you go to our Twitter feed, we've got two threads up there about what happened to Peter Jackson on The Hobbit, and you can just see, like, he was so exhausted and he was so tired and he was so under the gun, and he ran out of time. And as you know, you guys have seen all the behind the scenes stuff. Like the theatrical version we didn't get a funeral for Thorin. We didn't get any character moments for the dwarves in a trilogy that's supposedly about the dwarves. Instead, we got more Legolas, and this was Bolg. They filmed an entire trilogy of movies, or an entire duology of movies, with this as the bad guy, the main bad guy. This was the main bad guy. This guy's scary. This guy's super scary. And Tauriel fighting him and seeing them, like, just seeing them avoid each other and fight each other, supposedly is just some brutal action, and we never got it. So if Warner Brothers wants to ensure that I buy the next 4K movie pack, I'd say learn from the Snyder Cut. Give Peter Jackson some money to finish to make the 2 movies he wanted. Just give us the 2 movie cut of Peter Jackson's Hobbit, right? So it'll be shorter overall, but it'll be a Peter Jackson film. So give us the Peter Jackson cut. Also, give us the theatrical cuts with high frame rate. Remember, Peter Jackson filmed the entire Hobbit trilogy in high frame rate, 48 frames per second, and special theaters showed it in high frame rate. So, is it too much to ask, now that I have a 4K TV, that I've got my Xbox hooked up to it and I'm playing games at like 120 frames per second? Like, my TV can, and my Xbox and everything can handle high frame rate. So maybe Warner Brothers, on your next set, can you include the high frame rate versions of The Hobbit? I just want everything Hobbit. Like, give me the complete package, the high frame rate version, the 2 film Peter Jackson cut version, and the high frame rate theatrical, the regular frame rate extended cuts, and then the two film Peter Jackson recut. Um, the Conan John D. Reddy says Conan Stevens, Azog Balg was only shot in Dol Guldur and the Battle of Moria. They were redesigned after that. Again, there was so much going on in the movie that was probably, the Battle of Azanulbazar was probably the only thing that they needed for that character. Nordico says, I only like the first movie, first Hobbit movie. And again, why weren't there any songs in the Hobbit sequels? In the first Hobbit movie, we got 2 songs of dwarves singing. Who would have thought that a $1 billion modern feature film, not made by Disney, would have 2 songs sung by manly men or manly dwarves or dwarvy dwarves? Who can you imagine on paper, like having a $1 billion film sing 2 songs? How come we didn't get any more songs? Come on, Tolkien wrote songs. Put them in the movie, and I can guarantee you that Philippa Boyens, the huge Tolkien fan that she is, who won an Oscar and a Grammy for her songs on Lord of the Rings, I guarantee you there's more songs in The Hobbit. I guarantee you there's more songs in The Hobbit. There's so if you do, Lord of the Rings is perfect. Lord of the Rings 4K is even more perfect. If you want to make sure that I buy the next 4K set that's supposed to come out later this year, give us a better Hobbit. Give us all the versions of The Hobbit. The high frame rate theatrical, the regular frame rate extended, and the Peter Jackson cut. That's what I have to say. And then finally, big news. Rupert Murdoch to buy Houghton, Mifflin, Harcourt, and as many character books, including Lord of the Rings. Basically, the UK publisher of Lord of the Rings is buying the US publisher of Lord of the Rings. Rupert has nothing to. Rupert just owns all the stuff, and he's owned publishing for a long time. So it's not that Rupert Murdoch is suddenly buying Lord of the Rings. He's owned the Lord of the Rings publisher for years and years and years and years and years. So this is just he's just buying the American publisher. So it's that's the other big news. But Cliff can talk more about that later on. But I think it's time that we try bringing in some folks and talk Middle Earth March Madness. Now let me set this up. Let's go. Let me bring this up on screen. PowerPoint. Windows graphics. Will this show me? Hold on. I'm bringing up PowerPoint. Oh, it's not going to show me. All right. Middle Earth March Madness is our annual bracket voting tournament. All you have to do participate is vote. There's going to be 4 or 5 voting rounds. We're in the first round right now. And you go to the onering.net. The top story on the page is you click on it, and there it is, and you can vote for everybody. But don't vote yet, because we're going to debate all of the contestants this year. Now, every year we have a different theme. Obviously we can't do what's your favorite Lord of the Rings film, because there's supposed to be 64 brackets and there's only 6 films. So every year we come up with a theme. Last year it was favorite movie scene. What was everybody's favorite movie scene? And that was so much fun. So this year we have, what is your favorite costume from Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit? That's the theme this year. You're voting on the costumes, not the performances, not the actors, not the scene. You're voting on the costumes of what certain characters wear at certain times in The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. And so we, let's debate that. So let me bring in some folks here. Um, oh, someone's watching the show, and we've got a few people here. Hey, where's all of your Hobbit backgrounds? I'm used to seeing I'm used to seeing some Hobbit backgrounds.
Connect all the dots.
Ta-da. Have you figured out how to display that PowerPoint?
Yes, yes, I can actually do that. So once we settled on, because we actually, in the beginning, when we all start thinking about March Madness, we all start throwing everything at the wall. I mean, all the spaghetti hit the wall. And it was locations, it was characters, it was book stuff. And we finally settled on costumes because we hadn't actually done that. And we know that that's one of the most popular aspects of the fandom is costumes, because you still see Middle Earth costumes showing up at science fiction conventions. So we figured that would be one that would really get people engaged and excited. And there's so many costumes because there's so many characters. And when you get characters like Eowyn and Arwen alone, they have like 8 or 9 dresses. Of course, Eowyn also has armor. But I mean, so that was such a rich category. So then we basically started naming every costume we can think of from every character who's on screen long enough where you can see their costume and really, make it out. And we put that on a long, long list, and it gets divided by the brackets. And so the brackets we decided on were the men and the Maiar, or actually humans in the Maiar, because Eowyn obviously is not a man. Famously said, "I am no man." The elves got their own bracket because, again, lots of costume changes. Dwarves and hobbits were lumped together because, I mean, while we have 13 dwarves in The Hobbit and one more dwarf, with Gimli, not all of them are featured enough. I mean, they all had iconic costumes, but really we put the most spectacular costumes on there. But we voted for all of them.
It's the vertically challenged bracket.
Yeah. And then we had basically villains, and we were really torn. Does Denethor go into villains or into men? Does Saruman go into villains or into the Maiar category? I mean, it was sort of like, where do we want to put him? It depended on how many bad guys with great, cool looking costumes we could find. And then each staff member goes through on our spreadsheet and just votes for the costumes they liked best. And no pressure. And so everyone got it to vote. And so a bunch of people voted, and whatever the tallies were, the top 16 in each bracket made it. And then what their vote count was. So if I voted a high score for one person, and Anne voted a high score for that same person, and so did Jim, then that person got a higher ranking. And so that's how we did the ranking. It wasn't like they were competing against each other. There was no arm wrestling. Although we did have that great little, we finally did the bracket breakout, where we could vote, because there's so many costumes. That's the nice thing about costumes, is there's so many great costumes that people obviously were left out. So we gave the fans last week a chance to vote in somebody and to vote out somebody. So that was our wild card.
That was our play-in game, right? You know, kind of like in the NCAA, it's the play-in game.
Yeah, exactly, the play-in game. But it meant both voting somebody in as well as voting somebody out. Just swap in. It wasn't like there was a space for them. And I was upset that the dwarf women got knocked out. I was like, why don't we knock out the elephant? Because it's an animal. It's not really wearing a costume. It's just got a rack on its back. You know,
cosplay in Oliphant at a con.
I have seen, well, you know, I've seen somebody doing a Haradrim with a stuffed elephant. But I have not seen anyone do one of the elephants yet. Oliphants.
You know what I think is going to be really fun about this category is the people that do costuming are incredibly intense about it. And there's, you know, just so much that goes into it. And it's something we haven't done before.
It's
you know,
personal.
it's reaching out to a part of the fandom that is incredibly passionate and incredibly involved. And, you know, now they have a chance to be part of this. And the costumes, like you said, Kathy, are beautiful once you get a chance to really look at them.
Yeah.
Or hideously beautiful, just so well made.
Well, yeah, I mean, the layering alone, I mean, I remember when in 2001, when New Line did their first little sneak peek at Comic-Con, and it was the Ringwraiths chasing Arwen and Frodo. And so that was our first real look at the Ringwraiths. And they talked about, in order to get them all in black, he talked about just how many layers and how many yards of cloth that was. And it was astounding to get the layers so that not a bit of them showed, and it was just layer upon layer of black, and whereas they're not necessarily beautiful costumes, because you'll get to somebody like Denethor or Wormtongue, who's also, I mean, Wormtongue's all in black, but he's got some you know, fur on his collars, and he's got some trim, and you know, there's layers to these costumes that you don't always see. I mean, even with Gandalf and Saruman, there's some beautiful brocade work on those robes. So yeah, whenever I see the costumes in person, I always like to try to get pictures up close of so I've been sending into Spy Master. I have no idea if they'll show any of them, but I've gotten lots of pictures from FITM, from San Diego, when they had them on display, and I'm like, okay, we need to see the beadwork up close. You know, you want to see the trim, because I know the fans want to see that. All the costuming boards wanted to see that, because that's how people were building their costumes. That was part of the research. Everyone was crowdsourcing the research. You know, people were getting images and sharing it with others, and then they were sharing the patterns on how to make this dress, but then just tweak the arms or whatever. And yeah, when you start building a costume, I'm sure Jim can talk about this as well. I'm sure you spent months putting together some of your costumes, right?
Yeah, but I want to say a word about the contest generally. When we talk about cosplay, we're talking about a full spectrum of how fans engage. And it is certainly true that there are people that I've seen at cons that are, it looks like spending an entire year and a fortune on how they are creating the layers and doing all of the brocade work and really investing. But then the other cool thing about a cosplay contest is that there is a type of fan that just says, I want to throw together a costume over a weekend that is, you know, generally consistent with this direction. And that may be the way that some people are voting. In other words, it's both what I think is really cool but what I'd like to embody myself. So there is a class of cosplay that doesn't have to be at that semi-professional level, but
Well, yeah.
it's creating really deep enthusiasm within the fandom. And
Well, and
so,
it's the color palette. And I know this is one of the things that costume designers work on with the director and sometimes with the actual actors is a color palette so that each character has a color palette. So when you see the 4 hobbits traveling together, you can instantly recognize them even from the back because they each had their own color palette. And then when it came to the dwarves, when we were, when Warner Brothers was releasing to different news outlets, and the One Ring got Thorin, but releasing the hero costumes for all of the 13 dwarves, each one of them had a palette and a shape, and so a lot of times for costumers, I mean, they have categories in some contests that are called out of the closet. So if you can get the gold dress, if you can get the right color scheme or whatever, you can do a hobbit, a dwarf. If you just get a fur-lined jacket and stuff like that, you can be a dwarf. Yeah. And as long as you've got the right color palette going, or the shaping, like Justin's hat. Justin is always Bopher. Right, Justin?
That's me.
I love the framing that we're doing for this too, called Battle of the Best Dressed. It's just really, really going to be fun to watch as the different categories come together. There's just, again, some just, so I'm sure some folks will be interested in voting for their favorite character, regardless of costume. But we did try and put in, I think sometimes, the same character in different looks.
Yeah.
And that'll be interesting too.
Although I noticed in this first round, we sort of have, when it came to the elves, sometimes you have Galadriel on Galadriel or Arwen on Arwen, or Galadriel versus Arwen, and I'm just like, how on earth do you judge between those two?
And that's what I think is going to be really fun to start to watch the voting, because you're right. In the first rounds, I think we tried to avoid as much as we could something like Galadriel on Galadriel.
We did.
Yeah.
But Arwen, we got a couple Arwens against Arwen because
we have a couple, especially in the elves, because their costumes are so varied, and there's they're fairly prevalent in all the movies. But it's going to be.
There are no Arwen on Arwen matchups in the first round.
Okay. Yeah. So later rounds, though, some of the stuff is going to come in, and
I think
the final 4 is.
I can swear, because I voted last night, and I could swear there was at least one Arwen on Arwen.
Well. Anyways,
we'll find out when we get in there. We'll find out when we get in.
The final 4 is going to be epic. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's part of the reason of why we break them into brackets, because we could just do a straight 1 through 64 numbers and just, splatter them against, into 4 brackets. And I like the fact that we do split them out, so we guarantee that. Otherwise, it would probably be all elves or all dwarves or something in the armor. Because you got to think there's a lot of people in armor that are in categories versus a lot of beautiful dresses on elves, and then a couple really cool looking bad guys. And you could very easily have ended up with 2 elves against each other, or 2 armored dudes against each other. So it's nice that's why we split them into those categories, to sort of ensure that you have diversity when you get to the final 2 rounds.
And I think it's going to be tough in the first couple rounds too, when you have 64 and then 32. But to see all the different costumes. But as we start to maybe narrow the field a little bit, maybe we'll get a chance to highlight and talk about like what Kathy just did. About some of the details that people might have missed. Just really focus on the actual beauty of the fabric itself, regardless of the costume. There's all kinds of ways to really look into this, and it's just another way to explore in the movie, how the movies were just so well made, down to just these small details like belt buckles.
Well, the thing like that I would probably point out is because Boromir is in there for his hero costume, and he's got that burgundy sleeves with the little gold.
We'll show it in a sec.
No. I have a reason for stating this though, And what we don't know until we get to the coronation scene and we finally see Faramir in his costume, and he's got the royal blue, and the sleeves are the same kinds of sleeves, where they're that royal blue with the same gold piping on it. And so to see that was a Gondorian design feature, but it's first movie, and you don't get to see the companion piece until the very end, and realize it's the same costume in a different color scheme.
All right. Well, we finally got it up. So Middle Earth March Madness. These are your brackets. So right now we're voting on the 64 contestants this year for the best costume. You can go to the OneRing.net. Don't vote yet, because we might change your mind right now on this debate. So we've got 4 different categories, as Kathy was just saying. So we're gonna start with the human and Maiar category. This is so these are the 16 contestants that you need to vote on at the OneRing.net. Who is the best dressed in Middle Earth? Kaylin Griffin says, already voted. Well, then I expect, Kay, that you are as most informed as anybody else.
Vote often.
Yeah. So, all right.
Friend with a different IP.
and please encourage your friends to vote. Post a screenshot on Instagram of how you voted. This is all anonymous, so anyone can vote. You don't need to be a registered member. But our first bracket up on screen right now is Jim. Who are these people?
So these are, obviously the number 1 seed in the human Maiar, and it was interesting, as Kathy said, that we didn't throw him into the villains, is Saruman the White. It was an interesting choice to put him in white as opposed to a wizard of many colors, as he was in the book. But you can see already him in lots of different layers. Versus, and this is a fascinating 16 seed to me, because this would be kind of Theoden's kingly garment. We got him in another matchup in his armor at Helm's Deep. So I think Theoden's king outfit is a glorious costume.
Is that King from Two Towers?
Yeah, it's the king outfit. Yeah, so it's like when he and Aragorn are walking along the balustrade looking at the things, and Aragorn's like, we don't have enough, we need to light the beacon fires or something. And Theoden's like, where was Gondor when?
Yeah, so this is Theoden Meduseld as opposed to Helm's Deep. Yeah.
Yes.
And what you can't see is he's got 2 layers. So he's got, the vest is actually brown, and then it's a deep burgundy. So and they're both velvet. So it's velvet on velvet, with all of that lovely trim and his vambraces and his belts. And
I can tell you right now that velvet does not do anything for my figure.
Oh.
Maybe it's not the velvet,
wear a good cinching belt.
But Anne, I wanted to ask you, there was some controversy about Saruman's attire in the movies. We never get to see Saruman of many colors. This is literally the only thing. Was this, when the movies came out, was this the outfit you always envisioned Saruman wearing?
Well, obviously, because you think of him as Saruman the White. And so, there was certainly a vision of it. I was disappointed not to see coat of, his many colors. I'm guessing cinematically that may have been difficult to do and not make it look silly. And so, it is disappointing, but, I have to say, Christopher Lee, I was done, as soon as I heard that. So he could have worn, a bed sheet, and I think I would have been fine.
Well, and what was nice was Gandalf calls him white because they all sort of have rankings, and so he sort of refers to him as Gandalf the White, and the Rohirrim know him as Saruman the White, and so when Gandalf comes back from the dead, and of course no one knows it yet, but when he comes back and now he has inherited the White title. You need that confusion of people wondering if what they are now seeing in Fangorn Forest is Saruman or Gandalf, and the only way to do that is to have introduced Saruman in white.
And let me just go back to being the judge here. Let me give you guys jury instructions again. We are not voting on Christopher Lee. We are voting on the outfits here, not the people that wear them. So let that inform your vote at theonering.net. Let's move on to the next matchup.
The one thing there I'd say, Justin, is I think this is a potential upset. I think that Bernard Hill in his Theoden thing is going to give Saruman a run for the money on the costume.
Oh yeah. That brooch is yeah. I actually found a brooch just like his. In fact, I've got two of them, so I could have one on my belt for one of my costumes and one as a cloak clasp on my Durham costume.
You guys at home listening to Jim, let's prove him wrong. If you can find close-up shots of Saruman's outfit or cosplay of Saruman's outfit, please tag us in the post at the One Ring Net on Instagram and Twitter. But please post some details, because I know that this outfit, Christopher Lee would not wear anything less than perfection. We just know that about him.
Yeah.
All right, number 2. Jim, who are these people?
So we got an 8 and 9 seed. So this is a close matchup. So you got Gandalf the Whites here in his replacement role for Saruman the White, and then Éomer in his armor. So again, Two Towers. Introductions of both of those kinds of characters. Pretty different as far as the costume approach, a classic Rohirrim armor approach versus this flowing gown and robe. We tried to pick a picture here that showed off some of those layers as Ian McKellen took on the white version of Gandalf.
You can see the difference in the way it's cloaked, or the way that he's dressed, and the way that it's a very different imagery, particularly since, our Saruman picture didn't show him with his black staff with the white globe thing in it, but the fact that Gandalf has a white staff.
Well, and you contrast Gandalf's staff with the one he had before, which was, gray and kind of gnarled, and now it's, very clean line, very sophisticated.
Yeah.
So you could tell he's been, given a promotion.
We thought about as a staff of including the Hobbit version of Gandalf the Gray. He kind of fell off as we got into the seedings. The interesting thing about his staff, if you can buy a replica, is it's a combination. It looks like Gandalf the Gray's, but it's a much tighter circle, and inside of it is the element that you see in Gandalf the White's sort of lattice work. And so it's a fascinating combination of those two things. And
don't even get into Radagast loaning him his staff, right? And what Radagast's staff looked like.
Here's a question. When we talk about cosplay, do we include the accessories as well as the costumes themselves?
100%. Yes.
Staffs and swords and bows and arrows and those kinds of things. Backpacks for Sam.
It's part of the look. Yeah. It's part of the look. Look, for my money, this is Éomer all the way. that Gandalf outfit looks low rent, 1970s Comic-Con 78. He just pulled off some bed sheets and his mom helped him dye them in the sink. Like, come on, this is no contest here. Look, and I believe that Éomer here in this outfit is the first time we see a full armored human in Lord of the Rings. We have yet to, up until this point, we have not really seen a battle-ready armada of men until we see this character. So this is basically the Weta Workshop's debut of Men of the West.
Right. Yeah. Right. Because seeing, the Rohan, the scenes in Rohan is, the first time we've seen a bunch of humans outside of Aragorn, because we've been with elves and hobbits up until that point.
Incredible leather work that you'll find in any, you'll see soldiers.
And you'll see that because he's a cavalry, he's got the greaves on his shins, because once you're mounted on a horse, and if you encounter ground forces, they're going to be chopping at your legs. Hence, he's got armor on his legs, whereas somebody in Gondor might not have that, because they'd also be the ground unit.
Plus the skirt, the skirt of his overcoat or whatever is split, so he can ride a horse.
Yeah, it's scale now. Yeah.
Rick's Gabriel mentions that we did get Armies of Gondor in the prologue, but that's old. That's old history. That's actually
right. We don't see them as people. It was just this mass.
Right.
And this is we see the men of Rohan.
No individuals. Yeah.
We see elven armor.
Well, we saw Elendil and
we see Elrond.
Yeah, but those are side characters. This is a speaking role, a major character costume.
Right. I mean, Elrond's half elven. I get it that but to see a civilization of men, was just pretty unique.
So I was excited to see this, and I'm just knowing Carl Urban, how he's been Judge Dredd and he's been in Amazon's The Boys, and knowing what he looks like. He was also in the Bourne Identity movies. Like, knowing what he looks like in all those roles, and then just seeing him here, I don't see Carl Urban here. This is only Éomer, and a lot of that is the costume, and his pose, and just wearing that weight is amazing. So those are the two choices for this round. Hey, Kim in the chat room posted a link to Flickr of Saruman the White. Please post that photo. Just post the photo in comments, not just the link, because I think that Saruman picture does it justice.
Well, wait, go back real quick to Éomer again, because I you know how there's lots of little scenes where little bloopers happen throughout the movies. You guys all know that after he's given the horses to Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli, he gets back on his horse and his sword falls out of its scabbard. Because as he gets back on the horse, it flips, and it's falling to the ground as he's speaking to Aragorn.
Yeah.
And they both ignore it. It's really great to watch because they both ignore it.
Yeah, I don't even see looking at this character. I only see Éomer. I don't see Scourge from Marvel. I don't see Bones from Star Trek. And that is the quality of the outfit. All right, the next outfit, Jim. Who are these people?
So we've got an interesting picture of Éowyn, because this is not a picture that really shows up in the film. It's kind of been making the circuit. This is Éowyn's kind of wedding and coronation dress, which is a fascinating and beautiful thing, but not real familiar. You won't.
Well, you see, in the coronation, you do see a quick moment and she's got a cloak over her. So you don't even see the layers. It's not until I saw this costume in person at Comic-Con that I even realized there was the ties on the sleeves, on the upper arms.
Going up against Éowyn in an incredibly low number 12 seed, I think, is the classic Gandalf the Gray. And so lots of interesting detail on his staff and the wonderful hat that completes that outfit. For those that are cosplaying, the challenge is always to figure out how to get the hair and the beard and even the eyebrows right. And I've even seen cosplayers who work really hard on the nose for Gandalf the Gray.
Yeah.
So,
And I've heard too that hat is really hard to get, because you've got a very stiff brim and you've got a nice kind of squishy top, but it's still very shaped. And it's got that little tilt at the end of it. So I've heard people say that hat is really hard to replicate.
Well, as well as the, when it came to the Fellowship cloaks, the cloaks they were all given from the elves, that Stansborough wool was really hard, because it's not a normal hood, because it had to be long and pointed and slightly angular and everything like that. And so getting that sewing pattern. So most of the people who wanted to have that to incorporate with whichever Fellowship character they were doing would typically just buy it already made from Stansborough instead of trying to make it themselves, because it was also a very loose weave, and as you were cutting it, it would start to fall apart like water.
Well, we actually saw them making it at the Stansborough Mill.
Yeah.
And it's a very subtle, wonderful pattern that they've.
I'm going to going back to Éowyn's dress. That dress is stunning, and one of the sadnesses of the movies is we could not see the wedding. or her and Faramir fall in love.
Yeah,
And to be able to see this dress is amazing.
I'm with you there, and great to see Matthew Ross is joining us on Periscope. Kim, thank you for trying to upload pics. I guess you can't do that on live streams. But Eowyn's dress, it has been much talked about for 20 years. It's been much rumored. Only during quarantine did Miranda Otto start posting some of these photos from the scene that they shot. So
There's my dress.
the quarantine.
We suck this. This is going off.
So
Sorry.
The desirability of Eowyn's dress is it gives it a lot of weight. But I just have to say, Gandalf the Gray was so well done. That was it. That was 80 years of imagination, fans' imagination, and everyone agreed. When we saw Gandalf the Grey looking like that, it was all of our imaginations come to life.
And we all sort of like let out the breath that we'd been holding, worried that it wasn't going to work.
Yeah, when Gandalf rode up into Hobbit, we said.
Well, the thing I found so funny is he obviously kept his fellowship cloak with him after he became Gandalf the White, so that he could wrap it around himself when he shows up at Rohan, so that they could. And it all of a sudden it grew big enough to cover him all up.
Honestly, I think this is one of the things that Amazon, one of the positive energies that Amazon has, is that they don't have to make anything that has been so much desired in our imagination. Like, there's nothing in the Amazon show that we all agree should look a certain way. Gandalf the Grey here was universally like, this has to work. This has to look right, and it has to be what I imagined.
There's at least one. Amazon has got to do Galadriel right, and we know she's in it.
And they've already done Galadriel, and I think we'll get to her in a little bit. Let's go to the next one.
We'll see what the Amazon Galadriel is like. I agree, but yeah, we'll see.
Anne, who are these two people?
Oh my goodness. Well, we have a much more iconic on the right, Eowyn dress. That's the one, we first see her, which again is just beautiful in white. And then, on the left there, we've got Eowyn also, but in a different context. That's her as Durnhelm, isn't it?
No, that's Boromir.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's Boromir. I can't see the picture very well. I apologize. That's Boromir. Much more also iconic, Boromir. That's kind of how we see him. You can see the Horn of Gondor, at his hip. I love this category because these two costumes are kind of the definitive costume for these characters.
Yeah, Anna in the chat room says, this is way harder than I thought it would be, and that's why we're debating this right now. Jim, who are you going for on this one?
That's right. This is so hard because both of these costumes are so iconic. Both of them evoke a mood. We've seen both of these costumes. If you go to any conventions, you've got people that are playing them. You can actually, the Horn of Boromir is now for sale as a prop, full-size replica called the Horn of Gondor, which you can now add to this if you haven't made one already. Who am I going for here? I don't know yet. I love both of these a lot. I tend to default to the Fellowship, and Boromir is so iconic in this outfit, in this scene.
And he's not in later films.
And you get it, and you get the one-time shot. You see a replication of this in different color sets with Faramir later on. So I think I'm leaning toward Boromir, but I'm not going to fault anybody.
Kathy, we've got a question from the chat room. Is the fact that Boromir's costume more technically complicated? Should that have weight on your vote?
Well, yeah. I mean, if we had a different picture, you'd see he's got chainmail on underneath the burgundy sleeves. He's got those bracers on with the Tree of Gondor, which later on Aragorn takes as the one item that he takes with him to be a son of Gondor. There's trim on the because he's wearing that long tunic, and there's a little bit of trim on it. But every once in a while, you've seen like when they're in Lothlorien, he's got like the top button undone, and you can see that there's also trim on the top of the burgundy tunic as well. And so yeah, it is. And then the belt has actually got some really nice design work to it as well. So you can't necessarily see it all in this picture, but yeah, it's quite a nice costume.
You know what I love about this picture about Boromir, and I guess I want to follow up on one thing you said, Kathy, and the question to the questioner. I guess it's, everybody has a different way of looking at these costumes. Part of it is going to be, is this the prettier costume than the other? Is, as you said, Kathy, some people are going to say which one was more technically difficult to create, or is how to recreate. But one of the things I love about Boromir is, in this picture, you can clearly see he is a son of high rank, because he's got incredibly, like you said, very intricately worked sleeves, but at the same time, he's got, like his, I don't want to say his armor, but his sort of traveling clothes are well worn. He's not just somebody that, sits around the palace all day. And then you look at Eowyn, and she's the niece of the king, so she's clearly too, a lady or woman of, higher rank. She's got a beautifully made dress. So what I love about these two pictures here is you get a sense of the character themselves through the clothes they're wearing.
Yeah. Well, before we move on, I just want to say I am deducting points for Ned Stark. We are not fans of Game of Thrones here, so he gets points deducted from that. But I will say this, aside from the technical capabilities of and executions of these, let's go to what these outfits mean. When we first see Eowyn, standing at the top of that hill, on the top of that valley, on the top of a castle, on a windy day, and she represents the outfit, less the character. The outfit represents the innocence and purity of Rohan, and
as well as the solitude.
And what is about to
her character is the solitude of her character, because she feels left out because she's not allowed to be a warrior, even though she's got some of the skill set. She's not allowed to be a warrior, and her uncle is under control.
And this outfit also precludes or represents the difficult decision that Rohan has to make later on of Gondor calls for aid. Do they go support? And this outfit says, we do not support. We are innocent. We are not part of that battle. We are remote, and we will stay that way. So this outfit represents the old Rohan thinking, and represents everything that leads up to the decision to fight for Gondor. So I'm deducting points for Ned Stark, and I'm giving points for the emotional impact of just this outfit representing all of Rohan's storyline.
And I'm just going to say it, though, also with Boromir's, because of the way he's dressed in this, he's not wearing his fur-lined cloak and everything like that, and this is in the forest. We know this is just before he comes to the aid of the of Merry and Pippin. And so I'm giving him back some points because he goes and lays himself down on the line for the two other hobbits.
Well, and Justin, you made a great point about Eowyn, because that costume and everything represents Rohan. But I would also say the same of Boromir. Him right there represents Gondor.
Well,
it's a duality, because Denethor would have wanted the ring, and clearly Boromir was like, I wanted to bring this to him, and then he realizes his mistake, and he goes and makes amends, and he apologizes to Aragorn.
Look!
This scene epitomizes that duality of Gondor.
And you mentioned one thing that is an interesting technical point, because you said he looks like he's lived in that costume for a while. So one of the challenges that cosplayers have for these kinds of costumes is how do I make them look lived in and weathered? So I can do lots of great leather work, but then I have to think about, do I leave it out in the rain, or do I slap it around in the dirt for a while? And that's true of a lot of these costumes, not just costumes, but
right.
So the best.
Which ones do you soak with tea? You soak it in water with tea for a while so it gets all aged and old looking.
Back to the Gandalf costumes, and the best ones have like the dirt from the ride into Gondor that are kind of at the skirt of Gandalf the White. So there are a lot of details, and so you don't have to be a master, seamstress or a master leather worker. You can work in a lot of details just in some of these basic costumes.
At the end of the day, I only want to vote for winners, and Éowyn kills the Witch King, and Boromir died, and so did Ned Stark. So the dude just doesn't know how to survive, and Éowyn's a survivor. All right, next we've got. This is a good one. Who are these people, Jim?
So, interestingly, we already talked about Éowyn's wedding and dress. This is Faramir at seed number 14 in his companion outfit. So this is Faramir's kind of wedding and coronation outfit, in armor and in wonderful Gondorian splendor. And then in the 3 seed is just this marvelous armor of Theoden at Helm's Deep. We've got him on a horse, so it's a little hard to see.
This is not at Helm's Deep. This is at Pelennor Fields.
Oh, sorry.
Is it Pelennor or is it the cliffs above Pelennor?
I think it's the cliffs before they've ridden out, but it's the armor that he's wearing specifically for that battle. Although it's probably the same battle, because I don't think he got.
It's not like he has a lot of battle outfits. Yeah.
Yeah. So they might have had to fix the shoulder when he got stabbed.
Helm's Deep and the Pelennor Fields, but so King Theoden in his battle array.
And high marks for the fact that they've got leather armor on the horse too.
Oof.
Yeah.
That is nice. Hey, Kim
done.
Kim Rudolph in the chat room reminds us, and this is a great point, this shouldn't be about whether you like the character or their actions. This should be about how well the costume represents the characters and the technical skill that went into the costume.
Okay, I'm gonna bring up a point. The color themes that came out when the movies when they came out on DVD or video DVD and all those different things, green for Fellowship, red for Two Towers, and blue for Return of the King. So there is Faramir in the royal blue that represented the Return of the King color theme. As well as the fact that he's got, basically this is the replica armor that Boromir was wearing, but with slightly different sleeves because it's got the long sleeve version versus the short sleeve with the gold tithing on it. But and then it's velvet pannings because that's not usable armor except for the actual bodice and pauldrons. But the rest of it is very ceremonial. Mm-hmm. And is that Gandalf standing next to him? It has to be because there's a stick, or there's somebody standing next to him with a stick or a bow. Maybe it's a bow.
I think it's a bow.
Right, because Gandalf would have had a white one. It doesn't look white.
Yeah.
All right, this is
a color scheme.
Everyone in the chat room agrees that this is really a tough one. It's again we're not judging on the characters. We're judging the costumes and the just this storytelling required of Theoden and what his costume represents on the battlefield, on the history of Middle Earth, and the power of that costume is the thousand years of history between Rohan and Gondor.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's a really interesting point, Justin, because the Theoden costume goes from weakness to strength. And so we had the Theoden in the throne room before he's released from the Saruman captivity. He's just in an old man outfit, and then you see him in the costume that we saw before, with him at Medusel dressed as a king, and now this is Theoden at full strength.
Yeah, this is the general. This is king in general. And you can see, the horse motifs and the various motifs on his breastplate, as well as on his vambraces. I mean, he's got all this beautiful thematic design work into all of his armor. And if Faramir's hands were away, there would be etched, the white tree of Gondor would be etched on that armor plate.
No pressure to Amazon, but Theoden's outfit right here is what I expect to see on Russell Crowe. The level of detail and the level of craftsmanship
Didn't
is.
he just get hired to be on a different show?
He's a talented man, so he can be on a lot of shows. But Amazon's got it.
Because they just announced it like yesterday. What did he get?
Thor: Love and Thunder.
Oh yeah.
So, but the rumors are that Weta Workshop was only hired on Amazon's show to do only certain key characters, not the whole show. So it is very encouraging that if that's true, Weta Workshop, who did both of these, but more importantly Theoden, would be doing the hero armor for the show. All right, let's move on to the next one. Anne, who are these people?
Ooh, yes. We've got two warriors here, but in different ways. You've got Éowyn at number 6. Éowyn as a warrior. And you look at her costume, and we just saw her uncle's costume, the king. A lot of same color themes, a lot of same lines. But then coming in at number 11 is Aragorn at his coronation. So, and the picture I know is kind of small. The larger picture I think will show that chest plate will have the same Tree of Gondor type of etching. Clearly, the crown, but obviously this is his coronation, and he's about to see the love of his life, who he thought he was separated from. So it's a big day for Aragorn on this, and that day with Éowyn, I think she's as Durnhelm. This is where she is as Durnhelm, correct?
Yeah, this is Durnhelm.
Yeah, this is Durnhelm. So clearly she's wearing the kind of the armor costume of Gondor. I mean, of Rohan. Sorry, Rohan.
Yeah, it's a fairly standard. Yeah, because she's supposed to blend in. She didn't want to look like her brother. She didn't want to look. I mean, so she's not wearing royal armor, and she's not wearing what the royal guards are wearing with their elaborate cloaks. She had a very basic green cloak and everything. So she's trying to look like a standard cavalry member.
Right, but there's still so many similarities with Theoden's costume in terms of the lines and the colors and the way they sort of layered everything. But I agree with you, Kathy. She's trying to blend in. She doesn't want people to know that this is a woman. So this is going to be a really interesting.
The chat is
matchup.
split. The chat is split 50-50 right now. I personally, I'm like Éowyn's the hero of the battlefield, right? She destroys the Witch King and everything. Aragorn, I just felt that whole coronation scene, like it doesn't look like Vigo. It looks like they shot that whole coronation in reshoots. His hair feels less greasy. His beard is fuller, even though like 5 minutes earlier he had a light beard. The outfit just felt. Just didn't feel like Aragorn anymore, and I know he's not Aragorn anymore. He's Elisar.
Later, because they had to wait.
It's Elisar now.
Yeah, it's So I'm not sold. I think it looks like cheap cosplay. Aragorn looks like cheap cosplay. You're gonna have to sell me on voting for him.
Well, so the armor that he's wearing, he didn't wear to battle. I mean, his black gate armor he doesn't have a chest plate on that. I mean, he's wearing the same shirt with the white tree on it that Pippin wears. So he's probably got chainmail on, but he's not wearing the breastplate. That is just a royal thing that he's wearing. Although you can see, you probably can't, but I've got some fabulous pictures. I should have sent you, Justin, all the pictures I have of these costumes that are on dummies, so that they're looking at the costumes and not the character. Because I have details and I have them lit much better.
These are great.
I will send some of those to you, Justin, if you would like some of them for the next round.
Yeah, you're gonna have to sell me on Aragorn, and I don't think he makes it to the next round. Like Éowyn is just like that. The outfits, again, we're talking about the outfits, not the characters. Yeah. The outfit is awesome on her.
Yeah.
But here's the problem. Back to the what are we voting on? Éowyn is going to get a lot of sympathetic resonance given her Durnhelm character. And she kills the Witch King in this outfit. So
All right,
We'll
next.
see.
Anne, who are these people?
And
Oh,
now they're
well,
going
this
against
is-
each other.
This is great because, you know, they're going to get married. Although they don't know this at the time. Obviously, we have Faramir as a ranger. And Eowyn, she's still back at Meduseld in this scene, you know, wanting to go, you know, with her brother and her uncle, you know, off to war, but she's got to stay and protect her people. And I'm a long time participant in the message boards, and we have had long discussions about, you know, Eowyn fulfilling her duty here, and staying behind and taking care of her people. But, you know, so she is in, you know, more of a handmaiden dress, less of a shield maiden dress. You know, Faramir here is, you can see again the theme of Gondor, but this is his, you know, out in the woods, kind of blending in, you know, the green cloak to sort of blend in with the background, the brown. Yeah.
I love the fact that it's a longbow. I mean, you know, neither Legolas doesn't. I mean, his bow isn't this long. Aragorn's isn't this long. But the Gondorian Rangers, they were all using longbows, which is much more British, or British of a certain era, and because they're a much harder bow to operate, they require a lot more strength. But how do you run around with those?
Yeah, what I love about Faramir's costume is it tells a story right there. Just that costume right there tells you so much about him and his people.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yes.
I love that. And there's many of these other costumes that we have seen have also done this. You know, that you just look at that costume and it tells you a story. And Eowyn's in this round doesn't so much. I mean, it's beautiful and well made, but it just doesn't tell us enough.
You see it a lot because it's an easier one to make.
She's got too many layers to be told in one story.
To my eyes, like, this is such an easy vote for Faramir, but the chat room is like, Eowyn. What am I not seeing that you guys are seeing in Eowyn? This just looks like a pauper.
We're excited to have a costume to make. I mean, the Fellowship of the Ring was all male characters except for Arwen. And then we got to Two Towers and we had women. You know,
we have one more.
Yeah. Of course, we also had some of the Hobbit girls, but you know, they were so lightly seen in the beginning that.
Wait, so are you saying that the ability to replicate should weigh in on our vote?
I think it should. Because that's what I was the point I was making before. There's an element of technical expertise where some of these, it would be really hard to replicate that Faramir outfit. It is unbelievable, and they've done well, you know, in contests. Honestly, the Eowyn costume here is a much more straightforward costume. And for many fans, it would be an approachable one to take on.
Yeah. The ease of making, because there's lots of layers going on here with Faramir. If you look at the color of the sleeve, it's probably padded, but then his skirt, which is his tunic, is a dark olive green, and so that's two different things, two different layers right there. Plus he's got something on his upper arm, which I'm sure is some sort of padding, and then his cloak, and the vest, and his bracers and his gloves, because he's got gloves and bracers, because why not double up?
You know what? Joy in the chat room sums it up. Not Eowyn's best look. Faramir should win this one. Let's moving on.
And I will come in and say, and I'm not a cosplayer. I don't sew. I don't do anything. What I look at is, does the costume tell me a story?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I vote. So I guess what I'm coming in to say is, there's no rules for how you're voting here.
Yeah.
That's true.
So, you know, don't let someone else tell you how you need to vote. But my criteria is, does the costume tell me a story?
Yes.
And is it technically?
Or does it speak to you? I mean, if you like, I mean, I had never really done costuming until I saw the Fellowship of the Ring, and all of a sudden it was like, I need to figure out how to sew. I need to figure out how to put these things together. So seeing the films and seeing the costume made me want to do it. I'd always just been a fan of other people dressing in costume. And so if a costume moves you to want to replicate it, that's a costume you vote for.
That's great. Yep.
That's the one you vote for.
Yep.
All right, Jim, who are these next two people?
So this is the last matchup in our Human and Maiar round, if you want to call our friend Beorn, who was grossly underserved in the Hobbit movies, by the way. But at least we have him in the costume contest. So at the number 15 seed is Beorn, the shapeshifter, in his human form. And so an iconic but underserved character in The Hobbit. A pretty interesting, fairly simple costume, and if you get that axe, that's pretty cool. And then
he's got the armor. He's got the broken chains on his wrist, which is part of his costume and part of his character.
That is true. But then against him, and I don't see how anybody defeats Aragorn.
Wait, is this Strider?
Aragorn.
This is Strider.
This is Strider.
Aragorn. You know, pre-coronation, in the wilderness, guiding the Hobbits.
Samwise only knows him as Strider. Like, this is Strider. Yep. It's not Aragorn.
Samwise knows him as Longshanks in the movie.
Longshanks, yeah.
So,
but yeah, same. But you're right, Justin.
This is I don't see how you stop this. This was another one of those. I think they did it right. Apart from the fact that he's got the wrong sword for us book purists. But this is a really, really iconic character here.
Ladies, is this what you always envisioned your Strider being?
Well, because he also came with a cloak originally, and he originally he had a green cloak, that was over his eyes, so that when you first saw him in the Prancing Pony, smoking a cigar, or not a cigar, his pipe, and his eyes are slightly glowing from underneath the hood. That is word for word how it's described in the book. So yeah, his original look, and he looks totally like he's been walking through mud and rain and sleeping in it, and he looks like he smells.
That look foul, feel fair, right?
Yeah.
Well, look.
So I have a feeling this was in the Two Towers because he's wearing chainmail and he has Boromir's van braces.
Yeah, the chat room is saying that this is Helm's Deep Aragorn, and I think
more Helm's Deep.
Yeah, I think this is Helm's Deep Aragorn, and the chat room's also correct. That is Sonic the Hedgehog. That is a character we know nothing about as Tolkien fans. All right, that was just the first round of 16 out of 64.
We'll be faster.
So as much as we want to debate, we've got 4 more days of debates. But let's just get through the rest of these, shall we?
Okay.
The next round, the next grouping, are hobbits and dwarves, the halflings and the pint-sized people,
and one wild card,
and one wild card. So let's just get through it. Who are these people, Jim?
Well, we got at the number 1 seed Thorin Oakenshield in his classic front end of the Hobbit movies outfit, huge fur. And you don't see his actual oaken shield, which shows up later in the movie. And against Thorin, we've got at number 16 Keely, the dwarf, again in his early outfit from the first Hobbit movie.
And you can see that they're both royal, or they're both noble blood.
They're
because of their way they're related, but you can see from their color schemes and just their costumes, once we compare later on to the other dwarves, that they are they're nicer made costumes. They clearly have more money or more means.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to shut down this number 1 contender stuff because this. Why do we have a Klingon in this competition? I'm not here for Star Trek as much as I'm not here for Sonic the Hedgehog, but that is a Klingon on the left. And there's no way I'm voting for a Klingon.
It's too bad because it's a great costume.
I don't think so. I don't think it's a great costume. That does not look like a king I could follow.
Well, I will completely disagree with you.
Absolutely, same here.
Because there are, and I'll say that because there are some absolutely unbelievable Thorns that
Yeah.
you'll see at conventions, and many of which are women doing the cosplaying as well
Yes.
and they actually, I've seen them cosplay both of these characters in an incredible believability.
All right. Well, if the number one seed does move on to the next round, let's use some of those cosplay photos instead of this pimp Klingon. The next one. Who are these people?
Ooh.
I got to talk to this because, as you can see from my background, I
Yeah,
have
Rosie.
a sentimental version of this, and my wife Emily is probably watching this. This is us at the Hobbiton movie set. So I got to give out huge props for the Rosie Cotton wedding dress, which is a beautiful dress in many ways and lots of layers and wonderful flowering work. And yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah.
And then, so that's at number 8. So a close matchup with Balin, the
Father Christmas.
Father Christmas, exactly.
Well, I have to say, Balin is my favorite dwarf. So,
Yeah. And I liked his costume. I mean, he looked like Father Christmas, but then again, his character, even in the books, was kind of like a Father Christmas. He was the kind one to Bilbo, as well as being able to always reason with Thorin most of the time. I mean, I love his shoes. Look at his shoes. I mean, he's totally got a Father Christmas elf vibe going on. And I just must say that we did a Rosie Cotton wedding dress for my sister, but we used pinks and purples. Just because yellow is really hard to find, and I let my little sister, I said, we're making you a dress, you pick your colors. And she did a great job with a dusty rose and a dusty lavender. Yeah,
Well,
I kind of like these, but
yeah, I think the chat room loves Balin. Reminder that this dwarf is the one that Gimli talks to you about. Hey, let's go under the mountain and meet my cousin Balin. This is the guy that we expect to greet us with warm arms and hearty meals.
Instead, he's in a tomb.
And
So we should have a skeleton for the costume.
No, he's in a tomb.
He's in the tomb. We see Ori.
Son of Fundin.
And honestly, the one thing that I'm really looking forward to in the Amazon TV series is seeing the halls of Dwerodelf of Moria be sculpted or lived in at its peak of Dwarven society.
I would love it if they gave us a Durin, or any one of the Durins.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
All right, next one.
The last thing I'll say is vote Rosie. That's all I'll say.
All right,
Here's our wild card.
what's going on? Who are these people?
Here's our wild card.
So
Yeah.
wild card is Bard the Bowman, who played himself in. He beat Alfred in drag to by a
Thank
wide
you.
margin, by the way. So we've got Bard the Bowman, and he's up against an interesting character we won't see very much in the first Hobbit movie, and that's Thror, who is Thorin's grandfather, and really some unbelievable armor work as well as glorious beard work.
Thrain, I think, not.
Hey, that's actually Thrain.
Great.
Thror is Thorin's father. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's Thrain. You're absolutely right. Thrain, the grandfather.
And we see him twice. We see him on the throne when Thranduil comes to get, pay for and get his jewelry work and everything like that, and then they turn him away. So you see him on the throne at that point in this outfit, and then later on you see him in the hall with all the treasure, kind of displaying the dragon madness, and Thorin recognizing that and seeing it, which is what's so tragic, later on when Thorin starts to fall under that same spell. And I think it's finally that memory that pulls him out of it finally. But
So looking at the costumes, again, looking at my thing is both of these costumes to me tell me a story, about who they are just by what they are. It's like, we know Bard the Bard is, kind of this, kind of cranky loner that lives, in Lake Town. And then Thrain clearly is a king. you don't even have to know much about him, that you can tell what he's wearing right now and his whole bearing and demeanor. And that costume, both of those costumes must be incredibly difficult for different reasons. Bard, you go back to that old lived in, like you said, Jim, that lived in, this is what I wear kind of thing. And he's very comfortable in his clothing. The character is just, this is who I am. And then same with Thrain.
And he's mobile in it.
Wait, the chat room did a fact check. This is Thror. Thrain,
Jim, you were
Thrain
right.
is this father. Thror, this is Thror.
There you go.
Dude,
Regardless, it's a king.
feel better. Yeah.
But and so both of these costumes to me tell me a story.
Yeah, totally. And I love the treatment of the hair and the beard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's what we expect out of a dwarven royalty. It's like, of course they're going to have bigger beards, and of course they're going to be or not ordained.
Yeah, look how it's cut. It's
Yeah.
sort of, got those.
Yeah, and it looks like he's got braids coming down from underneath the crown down towards the beard that also have beadwork in them.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting thing about cosplay and dwarves. I'm sorry that we lost the dwarf women, because there's some really interesting beard work that I've seen.
Yeah.
Costumes. But here, so we saw Keeley in an earlier picture, and Thorin, who both in this, I guess the plot line was Thorin was upset, so he cut off his beard when he went into exile, versus his father and grandfather. But as a cosplay, it's candidly a lot easier to do Keeley, Thorin, because
They have very small beards.
yeah, and I've seen Keeley done, with kind of just dabbing on a little
Yeah.
5 o'clock shadow.
And Feely, it's like it's because it's braided, it's not a full beard really, because it's more or less he's just a little bit of braiding. Yeah. So in other words, but that's, I think, how for them, that's how they're young dwarves, that they haven't grown into their beards yet.
Well, we're talking about the wrong dwarves. We're talking about Thror here, and my final comment is no one votes for Gaston. That next group, who are these people, Anne?
Oh God, goodness, iconic Gimli there on the left. Full dwarf, warrior, fierce man, and then you have our Sam, who's a hobbit from the Shire, and you can tell his entire costume is, I'm a hobbit and I'm from the Shire.
And if he turned around, there would be pots hanging from his back, which tells you,
right. His
I'm from the
backpack
Shire
will be.
and I'm the bagman.
Yeah, but again, well, if I would look at technicality, it looks like Gimli's is much more difficult to create. But Sam's, again, tells me a story about who he is. That is, essential Sam. And that's essential Gimli too. Both of these are just so well done in terms of telling you who the characters are, what their, you kind of get a hint of what their role is in these films.
Yeah.
Sam's just your steady Sam.
What you can sort of see from this is that Gimli has a full, long, down to his knees hauberk of chainmail, which you can see then there on his arms. But the upper part of the arm is a different layer of mail, which was made out of like what we would like yen, Asian coins that have the hole in the middle, and so those are all coil wrapped together to make another layer of mail armor.
Well,
the chainmail.
People in the chat room are saying, sorry, Sam, this is Gimli all the way. But I have to go back to a discussion we had earlier, is that the technical capabilities are just one part of the voting measure. There's something about Sam's outfit. And I know the chat room did not like the idea of like, oh, this is easy to replicate, value of voting. And I'm like, actually, here's a good example of like it's easier to replicate Sam, but because we all want to be Sam or want to have a Sam in our lives, and it represents the character, and it represents goodness and wholesomeness and friendship and love. And so, like, yes, that is a hardcore dwarf costume, but if you want a costume that represents something good in this world, my vote is Sam.
Right.
Let me talk about hobbits for a minute. And I'll talk about Sam. And obviously, as Mad-Eye Gamgee, I have a pretty strong inclination.
And that picture behind you looks very familiar.
There you go. So if you're going to cosplay a Hobbit, what are you going to do about the feet if you want to march in the parade? So you got to figure out how to get hairy feet that will not get you thrown out of the con. If you're going to be Sam, what kind of backpack are you going to put on? And what are you going to put in accoutrements on that backpack? You're going to hang pots and pans. So where are you going to find Hobbit-sized pots and pans? Are you going to have a box of salt? Are you going to have Galadriel's gift inside that backpack? What about the rope? What about, you know, the array of kinds of things? Are you going to use, you know, are you going to make one of those elven cloaks and find the Malorn leaf brooch that's going to be the clasp for that cloak?
Plus, his vest is striped.
Right,
It's not buttoned, but his vest is striped.
So you got to find the right kind of vest. Are you going to have some kind of a side bag? Are you going to have a water bottle that you're going to go through Mordor with? So there are actually a lot of details if you're going to cosplay a Hobbit that you have to think about. It's not just, I can
That's
throw
a great point, Jim, because it's those small details, whereas Gimli, because Gimli is much more in your face, you know, you can kind of convey the essence of Gimli with a few things. Whereas Sam, you've got to get nearly everything right.
Yeah, and have the right color scheme.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, it comes down to the color scheme.
Different way to look at the same thing.
Yeah, all I'm saying, like the technical achievement of the outfit should not be the only measure of voting.
Because I personally won't be voting on that because I'm not versed in that. I'm going to look at who tells me a story.
All right, so who are these two people, and do they tell you a story?
You know, they do. And look at, you know, on the right, of course, Frodo, classic Frodo. And then on the left, you have Merry. And, you know, this is another thing to think about, is that Merry is sort of the son of a fairly high-ranking family. You know, he's a Brandybuck. You know, his family is wealthy. And you can tell that, you know, just from, I mean, is that his Gondor costume?
No,
this is Rohan.
Oh, Rohan. I'm sorry, Rohan costume. So, but even so, you know, he's kind of like very much at ease, you know, in these grander kind of clothes, whereas Frodo always kind of looks like he's, you know, scared. And, you know, I would say the difficulty, Jim, that you just described of getting Sam's costume right, it's just as difficult to get Frodo's costume right.
And again, it's a different color scheme. Because again, a lot of times people just win. As long as you get close to the color scheme, you can tell the four hobbits apart. Merry's, of course, what's nice about it is, yes, he does fit better in with, I mean, he's bright. But in Rohan, the fact that he volunteers, he's like, I'm going to pledge myself to you, and I'm going to, you know, I've got a sword and I'm going to pledge myself. Why should I not be able to go fight for my friends just like everyone else is? And so he's showing, so you can see that's the story he's telling in this, is he's willing to go fight if they'll let him.
Mm-hmm. Which is very hobbity, right?
Yes, very hobbity.
Merry's costume here is interesting because it's a hybrid costume. So you've got him in his Rohan armor, but you also get that elven cloak.
Mm-hmm.
You get elements of both, which is pretty interesting. It tells the story, like Anne was saying.
Yeah. And you're right. That's almost the look of Frodo the first time they see the Nazgul on Weathertop. That's the look on his face right there.
Yeah, you know, very ill prepared for what's about to come.
Yeah. He's, I mean, he's got the resolve. And it's interesting, having just read the books recently, he's very much a philosopher. You know, he's educated, and it comes out that gentlemanly manner, you know, in his character and demeaning, which is why he and Merry get along so well. Is I think that they're both of that class, whereas Pippin is sort of, because he's a Took, and which is a well-known family, well-done family as well, and they're cousins. You know, he's related to Frodo, but he's the young, you know. And then Sam, of course, is a servant of sorts. I mean, he's a companion, but he's also a servant of sorts. So they each have their own little pecking order, even amongst the four of them.
I don't like this one from Frodo. All right, next one. Jim, who are these people?
So this is Party Bilbo. So this is immediately after Bilbo has had his birthday party, has disappeared, and he showed up back and he's flipping the ring.
And he's laughing at his own jokes.
Laughing. This is a very iconic. You see a lot of these Bilbo costumes or cosplays at cons. And then this magnificent Thorin in his royal attire as the king.
And there he is with fur around his collar. That for some reason Justin feels that dwarves shouldn't be wearing fur, and I'm like, why? They live in mountains, and mountains are cold on the inside.
Oh, just that first fur looked. It just looked like a pimp. Like this looks like it. This looks great. This looks great. It falls off the shoulder. It gives the king much more broad shoulders. It makes a dwarf look bigger than he is, which is what you want a warrior statesman to go into negotiations or battle as.
Of course, he's crazy when he's in this costume. Is pretty much the entire time that he's in this costume, he's also crazy.
Yeah.
So the question, this leads me to believe how much gold is in this costume. Is the gold in the costume making him crazy?
Could be.
Could be.
I think it's the gold in the hall and the Arkenstone on his brain.
Of course, Bilbo's got the ring making him crazy. So
This is true. They're both crazy for a different reason in this picture.
the wonderful thing about Bilbo cosplay is it's all about the vests.
Yeah.
Yes.
And this one is a beautiful representation.
It's a double vested, isn't it? Wow.
But Bilbo just looks good. It looks so good, and you can cosplay it, and it's just well executed. And we've lived with that character for 80 years, and it's just like,
and it's comfortable.
But whatever you think about the Hobbit movies, by the time we get to the third movie and we see Thorin looking like this, yes, this is the king. This is I've never truly believed that there were there are 7 kings of dwarves. Like the dwarves were so mighty that they had that much land and that much power and that many kings and that many lands. But then I see this and I'm like, yes.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And of course they all don really great armor. And then of course when he finally comes back to himself, it's because he's taken a lot of this stuff off. And he comes out in a much simpler outfit once they finally come out. But the rest of the dwarves are still dressed to the nines when they all finally come out to Dane's rescue.
Eravandi, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Thank you all for sticking with us. We're coming up on. We're going to get through this pretty quickly. Jim, who is this next round?
Yeah, so I wish Cliff was here, because if he was, he would be pulling out his own personal version of number 10, which is Bilbo in his dressing gown robe. It's the robe of many colors, and it may be simple if you can figure out how to recreate that robe at number 10. So that's Bilbo at home, and then you've got Keely's brother Feely. So we talked a little bit about the beard components of this and a couple of swords. So this is another classic dwarven tell.
And I wish we had a better picture of him, because it actually is a really nice looking, particularly the jacket and the leather work is really nice.
Yeah, this picture underserves Keely. This is my favorite outfit, one of my favorite outfits of all the dwarves.
Yeah, mine too. And I love the double swords, and he's got so he can put them both in.
I highly recommend people, before you vote for this one, go look up Keely's outfits, because Feely's outfits, because this one deserves your vote as much as Cliff loves The Hobbit. Feely's outfit here is really nice, and there's better pictures of it. All right, we're moving on. Anne, who are these people?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I mean,
Justin in number 15.
That's Belfer.
That's Gopher. And then we have Pippin, in his, armor of Gondor. You kind of like lose. There's not much of Pippin in there. You've got that big old helmet.
Well, he's not always wearing the helmet, but that's the first. I've forgotten that he does put the helmet on.
Yeah, but you still have his elven cloak, and you've got the iconic Tree of Gondor, underneath. So, he's a hobbit and he's, a man of, a soldier of Gondor. Both are, you never know what's going on with Beaufort. I mean, you look at that hat, Justin.
I love it. I love both these outfits, and this one is actually pretty tough for me because I think both of them are great and carry a lot of emotion and a lot of character. But I vote for Beaufort because how do you make a dozen dwarves look unique?
Yeah.
With no repetition, and there's so much character in Beaufort's outfit. And there's
well, he's a working class. He's definitely working class. I mean, because it's more of like a hammer. I don't think it's an axe. I think he's got like a hammer, and he's wearing a scarf and a hat. I mean, he looks like his mom was like, "You got to dress warm," before he left the house.
Yeah.
Doesn't he look like that? Yeah.
And look, at this point in the story, Pippin is that Merry or Pippin? That's Pippin.
That's Pippin. This is the point of the story where Pippin gains his courage, because it's the first time he rushes into it, or he actually does kill at least one orc. I mean,
but he's cosplaying as a Gondorian. He's cosplaying.
Yeah,
well, the helmet,
Yeah, well,
and the Tree of Gondor on a Shireling. Come on.
Well, yeah, but he does actually, in the book and everything like that, both he and Merry continue their alliances and go back frequently between the two countries and stuff like that. And like I said, he finally gains his courage. He goes into a fight. He sits there. I mean, he rescues. I mean, he's the reason Faramir is still alive.
Look, never trust a took. Next, we're going. All right, that was the Hobbit and Dwarf section. Now we're gonna run through the village. And thank you. Someone in the chat pointed out that on our website, villains is the second grouping. So it is kind of out of order on the website. So we apologize for getting that out of order. So this is So let's just dive into some villains. Jim, who are these people?
So
the most dressed and the least dressed.
That's right. I like this picture of Denethor because it really does illustrate that. To Kathy, one of her points about layering and so on. And I've seen some people do some pretty amazing Denethor costumes because you really get into it. You got mail, you got swords, you've got the cloak, and so you've got at the one scene Denethor. Whether or not he's a villain is another.
But he's wearing full length.
Big debate in the staff.
He's wearing full length chainmail, and this is at a time before the war, before there's a battle. That there is no battle yet, and he's wearing full length chainmail.
Well, in the book, that's true to character.
I know. It's the paranoia of Denethor, which is we already know that he's already slightly.
Speaking of true to the book,
paranoid.
Speaking of true to the book, is Gollum described as wearing a loincloth?
That's a great question. I don't know.
I'm not sure they ever really describe. I mean, he kind of.
They never describe him as naked, so he's never described as naked, and therefore you can assume he's wearing something.
I think he's got some sort of scraps of things.
And particular body type to cosplay Gollum.
Plus, he has to have a pocket to put his ring in because
that's right.
Wear it all the time, and he has to have some place to put it.
Yeah.
So functionally, Gollum wins in the costume department. I mean, it is as efficient as you can get. All right,
I think Jim, you had started to say that a lot of people that do Gollum, it's much more about the body. And the other things, the scraggly hair,
cap, and
before we move on, Joy says he is CG, which is an automatic discount. I would normally say that, but remember, Gollum came out post Jar Jar. This is one of the first digital characters ever created. So I actually give it bonus points for having cloth simulations that you never felt were out of place. You never. There's not one point in the movie where you're like, "Whoa, that's a fake cloth on a fake character."
And the acting that Andy did that came across in the way they did with the facial reconstructions and stuff like that. Gollum acts. I mean, Andy is acting, but you can see that there's acting going on as opposed to computer simulated emotions or computer simulated speech and computer simulated motion.
Yeah.
It's not simulated because it is a performance. It's performance imagery.
Totally. All right, Anne, who are these people?
Oh my gosh, Grima Wormtongue. I mean, we had talked earlier, about, how, the fur and the darkness and everything else that, that he really embodies that. And then of course there's the mouth of Sauron, who, is 100% costume. There's really no person beyond, I mean, obviously there is, but that if you're doing the mouth of Sauron, obviously we're not seeing his entire costume here, but if you can somehow get that head thing right, everybody's going to know who you are. So Grima Wormtongue to me, tells a story. You've got this costume, it's got fur, so clearly he's someone of some rank, but he's kind of got this cringy pose like here too, and that's his whole demeanor. So you look at him and you think sneak.
You also think decrepit, that he's starting to decay.
Yeah.
A little bit.
So it's two completely different looks of costuming. You've got one is all the entire thing, head to toe is just, piece. Grima is much more just about the personalities, whereas the clothes he's wearing.
The one thing I'd say about Grima is if you're truly committed to the cosplay, you got to shave off your eyebrows.
Yep. Or do some some of that plasticky stuff or whatever. Yeah.
I gotta say, Grima Wormtongue, it could have quickly devolved into caricature and totally taken us out of the realism of the trilogy, and but the outfit and the performance together, somehow Brad Dourif elevated the character into something bigger than anyone could have imagined from the books. But when it comes down, if we're talking costumes, the mouth of Sauron was so intense. Yeah. They like beyond any of our nightmares.
Yeah.
So I mean, all if we were judging
totally different.
If we were judging the characters,
we gotta stop trying to sway the audience.
Well, that's the whole point of this. Look, if we were judging characters and performances, Grima Wormtongue has a solid shot. But if we're just judging the costumes and the adaptation of Tolkien's vision, man, Mouth of Sauron was just incredible. After 3 movies of incredible characters, we get to Mouth of Sauron, and you're still blown away. I mean, it's amazing. Who are these people, Jim?
So this is a very interesting match because it's kind of soldier. So at number 5, you have the Haradrim, or a Southron, foot soldier. You may remember this from the Two Towers and the March to Ithilien and the Oliphant scene, and the Fenrir and his company attack these guys. And then also in that same movie, you got the Easterlings at the number 12 seed, which have a very oriental feel to them. Sometimes you'll see, groups of folks that are dressed up in variations of these costumes. So these are almost representative of a type of costume, of this loose garb and face masks and kind of, teeth and jungly kinds of imagery.
And very, very spiky. The armor there on the Easterlings are spiky because it's scale mail, but the points point up so that if you were to hit it with like an open arm or something, it would still cut you.
Yeah. So it'll be, it's fascinating that the way the seating's worked out is these guys are up against one another. Yeah.
We can move on
Yeah, good overview.
faster. Oh dear. Oh dear. The
I don't
ancient
know
evil
how-
versus the ancient evil.
I don't know how someone cosplays a Balrog. Just saying.
I do.
We have someone who not only cosplayed a Balrog, but it won her a trip to New Zealand.
Okay,
Of
good
course,
to
she
know.
was a Las Vegas showgirl, Balrog, but
And she's also played Sauron's helm. Like we have a.
Yeah.
She actually has
actually-
both of these cosplays.
well, just the helm. But you know, it's full size. It fits.
And these two represent incredibly complex costuming for different reasons, but you know, I mean, they're just so detailed. There's so much to both of them.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, as an amateur, you know, how do you pull something off like this? You know, how do you do it?
Well,
You do
let
the
me
best
ask-
you can, and
Let me ask you, you guys, having read the books and then coming into these movies, did one of these deliver on your imagination more than the other?
Balrog.
Balrog.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Balrog is, you know, fire and smoke, and you see the Balrog in the book. Yeah, in the book, you don't get a lot other than a giant eyeball, which I also have seen cosplayed.
Yeah.
Sauron armor kind of an idea. So that Sauron in armor is a movie creation.
Yeah, it's a movie creation, and it's just like evil-looking armor. It doesn't necessarily say "I am Sauron" to me. It could be any evil guy's armor, whereas Balrog is fire and shadow, and the Balrog
And wings.
and wings, or wings of smoke. We don't know.
No wings.
The Balrog is a creature. It does not have a costume. How could someone possibly vote for that?
Well, how can a human being become a Balrog? That's the whole idea of costuming. How do they become a hobbit?
Yeah.
And there are cosplayers we've seen at Dragon Con. Party Balrog, Showgirl Balrog.
Yeah, there's lots you can do with a Balrog. Yep.
Yeah, there's only one thing you can do
Me
with...
liking the Balrog. I would go for the Balrog for myself. But yeah, that Sauron armor is awesome. And for anyone, I've seen some people who've been able to pull off, you know, make simulations of it. And so when you do that, I mean, because it's very, very detailed.
I see more Witch Kings than I do Saurons.
Yeah.
There we go.
Speaking of,
Who are these people? Is that the Witch King?
so the Witch King is the one all white. This is the one that Frodo sees when he's in the Shadow Realm. And of course, on the left, the green one is our the King of the Dead, which I wonder how he ended up in the bad guys, because they were bad guys and that's why they're cursed, but they became good guys when they joined Aragorn in his group. So
At this moment, though, he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
yeah, because you're right. He's a challenge. It's a challenge to get them to to agree.
So this is a wraith on wraith battle here.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wraith against Ghost or
Battle of the Undead right there.
I
zombies in Middle Earth.
I feel like the undead, the King of the Undead, was much more effective in his costuming.
Well, it evokes an actual culture.
Yeah.
And in the movie, you never really see the Witch King in Twilight with this level of clarity. It's always fuzzed up because the ring is on. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if there's another picture from the Hobbit final battle with Elrond that we can find.
Dol Guldur.
Yeah. But because for me right now, like the King of the Dead was just a huge. Again, we've gone through 2.5 movies by then, and met 100 characters, and then we meet a whole new race of characters. And there's more design to show that's unique. I mean, just
look at that breastplate of his armor right there. I mean, it's got this like interesting lattice work pattern on it,
Right.
and then of course he's clearly wearing a cloak. A burgundy
And his helm too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, yeah, I like what you said, Kathy, that he really, you know, that evokes a culture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. All right. Jim, who are these?
I can't see on my screen which seed the Oliphant gets in the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. as Kathy said early on, it's
6.
hard to understand how
Yeah.
the 6th seed is the Oliphant. Favorite, particularly how despicable our mayor of Lake Town at number 11 is. But that mayor costume is an amazing. You can't see all of it here, but it is a pretty spectacular.
I don't know how you cosplay the Oliphant. So.
I mean, it's an incredible set piece. It's not really a costume.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird that as we've talked about Thorin, the Hobbit really is obsessed with furs.
Well, the dwarf culture, I think, is going because they were bringing it more out, and fur is not something that would be untoward for people who live in the mountains, because there'd be things like bears and wolves and things like that in the mountains. Hence, you hunt and you find fur, and because it's cool inside of mountains. I mean, it's just, no matter how hot it is outside, it's always going to be cool inside of a mountain. So fur would be just like a natural accoutrement.
That's true.
Which I never understood why Gollum, had like nothing to wear, and he lived for decades inside a mountain. But
well, he had a magic ring.
Yeah, that's true. It might have been a volcanic vent, where his water pond could have been. He could have been in a sauna the whole time, and that's why he's all like wrinkled and stuff. But we're here we're here talking about Oliphant's armor dress versus Master of Lake Town. Honestly, the Hobbit is a whole separate discussion, but I do feel that Peter, Philippa, and Fran wrote a comedy movie. They cast a comedy movie, the entire cast of The Hobbit, and Stephen Fry is one of the funniest comedians in the world. He is at the top of his game, and then they dressed for a comedy, and I guarantee you there's a performance on film somewhere that is played for comedy. But the movie we got was an action adventure. It wasn't comedy. And Howard Shore's score, love Howard Shore, he's not a comedy musician. So I feel like my opinion of this outfit is colored by intention versus execution of what we finally got.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, moving on. Next, we've got Anne. Who are these people?
Oh my goodness. I love the character on the right. The Witch King. Like so.
You need a picture with his helmet on.
I'm sorry.
That's
ring race. Sorry. I mean, they just, just so much terror. Just because of their nothingness. They're just perfect. And then of course Lurtz, who was one of the most, non-book characters that came out of the movies that became, like a fan favorite. Classic. I love the white forehead because that's, it's the hand, the white hand of Saruman. Two great costumes that, again, both tell me a story. The guy on the right, he's like creepy, scared, and he's creepy because there's nothing there. It's just sort of that nothingness. Whereas Lurtz is all out there. I'm a bad guy, and I'm happy about it. And I'm going to enjoy it.
He's our definition of what an Uruk is, because this is the first time we've seen lots and lots of orcs before this, surrounding Saruman. But this is when our first view of the Uruk, the new version that he's creating that can run in sunlight. And so Lurtz's job is to define what an Uruk is.
Yeah,
right.
Chris.
And so, from a costuming point of view, obviously, the ring wraith, the whole, cloak thing, is probably reasonably easy to do. It's that leather, or I'm sorry, the metal on his arms and his hands. It just covers all his fingers and everything.
Their boots. Their boots.
Yeah, and their boots are exactly the same pattern. Yeah. So from a technical complexity, you've got it more, not so much the cloak, but just everything else that comes with it that, again, makes it scary. Lurtz, there's complexity all over the place with that, because you can see like his, on our right, his left shoulder, that the leather pieces that is kind of either ripped away or it's shredded. There's just incredible complexity in his costume.
Crystal in the
Plus
chat
you have to do
room. Crystal
plus you have to do facial
says,
stuff.
I like both of these.
Me too.
I will say
Yeah.
this, functionally, both are awesome. I will remind people that ring wraiths not only look like that in battle, but they ride horses very fast, and then they ride big dragons in the sky like that, and they never lose their hood. So I gotta give it to give some credit to the quality of the hood for staying on.
I will say I've cosplayed a ring wraith. The gauntlets are the real tough part too.
Yeah.
We need to go and put them
Yeah.
together.
Articulated metal for hands is really tough.
Well, let me ask you this: if you've cosplayed as a ring wraith, what has been the reaction just walking around?
Oh, it's cool. It's we walked in the Dragon Con parade with a group of us. We had those little stuffed hobby horses, on the pole. Those were our steeds, and it was fun to be able to walk up and when you have your gauntlet, you can kind of point at people. We had one guy who had recorded or had some kind of a vocal box where he would have the ring wraith screech going on, but after the Holocaust cloak and trying to figure out how people don't see your face, it's all about the shoes and the gauntlets that really bring the factor into that.
Shout out to Fellowship of the Ring. These are the two bad guys of Fellowship. We have yet to even meet Rohan, and we don't even know what an Ent is. Haven't even heard of it. But these are the two bad guys in Fellowship, and they're so scary and they're so effective. And they're not an actor. There's not an actor's face there. These are pure characters, pure costume and character, and they're so frightening that the rest of the series, the next 10 hours of movies, are terrifying because we've been set up. These guys are just incredible costumes, and it's a toss-up for me.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, next one is... Who are these people, Jim?
So on number 15, the last one in our villains round, is one of the riders of the Oliphants, the Mumakil, in the Battle of Pelennor. He's really iconic, and he has this interesting confrontation with Éomer. And so you've got a specific South run in number 15 with wonderful face paint and great costume. And then the classic at the number 2 seed is our Witch King. In this case, this is him on the battlefield confronting Durnhelm and showing Durnhelm the glory of his costume, along with a giant mace as well as his
sword and mace, yeah.
And so we could have gone a lot of places with the Witch King when he confronts Gandalf with a flaming sword, or when he's riding, one of the flying fell beasts or dragons in the sky. So a lot of places we could have gone, but and there are a lot of very wonderful ring wraith costumes, and a lot of that is about that helm, getting that.
Yeah, the helm sells it.
I have to say the Oliphant Rider is one of my favorite characters in Two Towers, because he has that little bit of an interaction. I mean, the costuming is so well done, in that, there's not a lot of fabric there, but you definitely get a sense of an alien culture. I just love him. I mean, I love the Witch King too, because you see the nothingness that's beneath his helm, but that Oliphant Rider is one of my favorites.
Well, and the makeup that they've put on, because the Oliphants also have it on them, is like the war paint. So you're getting a cultural aspect of, this is how we go to war. So it's not just, this is how I go to the market. This is how I go to war out of that costume. So with the costume and the face paint, you're definitely getting battle character.
Yep. And again, he has you see a little bit of his personality, because he's a warrior, and he glories in the mayhem and the death and everything else. It's just such a great character.
Yeah, he's like just mow down more and more. All the riders, because he's just doing this with the elephant, or the Oliphant, because it's got that that spiky thing off of his tusks down the bottom, that he could just mow down the opponents.
Yep.
What would be a really cool version of him would be if somebody could figure out how to put Éomer's spear right into his chest and walk around with that as your cosplay.
That would be awesome.
That would be fun.
That concludes the third region of the bad guys, and this is the fourth. We're 48 out of 64, and this is the Elves region. This is the final bracket of Middle Earth March Madness. Again, you can go to the OneRing.net. Make sure you put THE at the front. The OneRing.net. A good old-fashioned website with a good old-fashioned voting poll. And it's free, and you can vote again and again. Tell your friends to vote. Tell your kids to vote. Tell your grandparents to vote. Because I bet you some of these competitions are going to be hot.
Actually, you can't vote again and again. I think they figured out how to only let you vote once.
All right. Well,
we
then
had a problem with voting over and over again. That was a big problem.
Well, then tell your kids,
Get all
tell
your
your
friends
wife,
to vote.
yeah, tell everybody
All
to
your
vote.
friends.
And for everyone who has a cosplay, show your pictures on our Twitter account or our Facebook pages and talk to your friends and get them to vote by sharing your pictures with us.
There you go.
In fact, you can send them to spymaster@theonering.net.
Have
if
you
want
seen
them to be featured.
cosplay? Have you seen cosplay of these two yet?
Sure, lots of Galadriels.
Oh yeah.
This region is also known as the Galadriel versus Arwen region.
Galadriel versus everybody.
You're going to see a lot of
Or
Galadriel.
Arwen versus
a lot of
everybody. It's-
Arwen in this region.
Yeah.
This is number one Galadriel in her classic Lothlorien flowing white. There's amazing detail if you get up close. Kathy's get your folks to really get close-ups of that Galadriel form. And then you get Hobbit Elrond in his armor, which you see him in Dol Guldur like that in particular. So it's a pretty spectacular armor.
It's so cool when they finally show up. It's more than just Galadriel coming to rescue Gandalf, and then all of a sudden she's not alone. And then of course Elrond and Saruman show up, and so when Elrond steps forward and he pulls out his sword, it's like game on.
I felt Elrond was overdressed for the moment he was expecting. I don't know. This
I don't
felt
think so.
this felt gratuitous, like Weta Workshop just showing off at the end of the Hobbit
You're saying
trilogy.
as a scene, but not necessarily just as a costume.
Yeah, I just felt I think the costume itself is over-designed, overdeveloped for.
It's very similar to his Third Age armor that he wears at the last alliance of men and elves. It's a different color scheme, but it's almost the same kind of patterning. So if you're going to go up against the big bad Sauron or his minions, why would you wear anything less than the same kind of armor?
But I will say this Galadriel dress is pretty spectacular.
Yes.
So it's going to be there's a reason it came through number one in the seeding.
And the more pictures you look up of that dress, it's just spectacular. All right, Anne, who are these people?
Oh my goodness, this is one of our, this is one of the first of many Arwen versus Galadriel battles. Granddaughter versus grandmother, right? You have Arwen, at the moment, when she's on the bridge with Aragorn.
Actually, I think this is the dream dress, but I'm not sure. This is the bridge dress.
Yep, the dream dress is purple. We'll see it.
Yeah.
Isn't that?
Yeah,
purple?
and then
No, it's white.
you have Galadriel again. Again, as we said, we're going to have a lot of Galadriels. And this one
is that
is
amazing dress where when she first shows up in Rivendell.
Yeah.
And Gandalf sees her, and it's like she's turning. It's like she's got to be on a pedestal that's turning, because how does can an elf spin without having to move their legs?
So I would think as a costumer, getting that dress to drape well would be really, really difficult.
Yeah. So I think
because it's incredible. It's longer than she is tall. You can tell by the wrapping. We don't see much of Arwen's dress here. You know, it's much more about Arwen's face and her hair and everything, but you know, that dress is beautiful.
Yeah. You can actually buy, Weta just released one of their newest figures, is this Galadriel in this corkscrew pose. It's really an iconic pose.
It's beautiful.
And of course, the dress that's in this competition is actually the white dress underneath the gray. because the gray stays on because she's got that shell clasp, which is on the gray right now. But then when they go to the council, she's moved it to the white dress and the gray is off. So it's like the gray is an overdress.
Right.
I don't know. I don't have an opinion on this one.
Too
Next.
hard.
This is an awesome competition. This really is. This one right here.
Another Arwen Galadriel.
We got a lot of these.
I'm so out of league on women's fashion. You guys take it.
Well, what I like about this, okay, so obviously we have Arwen in her wedding dress, coronation dress, the green. And again, it's one that we only see very briefly at the end during the coronation sequence. But it's beautifully, because it's beadwork, and a lot of her stuff has beadwork along her collars, but this one also has it on the arm. So it's the first time we've seen her in more beadwork than normal. I mean, Galadriel, on the other hand, wears nothing but beadwork on most of her dresses. And then, of course, number 12 is dark Galadriel. Now, there was 2 different dark Galadriels, and this one she's actually wearing a metal bodice. This is armored. This is Galadriel armored and dark. I kind of loved and would have loved if we'd also had the dark Galadriel from The Hobbit, because in that one she's got like a white dress on, and then she has what looks like greenish gray webbing over her that is almost looks like she's a sea creature, a monster that's come out of the sea with kelp on her or something like that. So when Galadriel goes dark, everything about her changes and becomes dangerous looking. And so obviously this is warrior Galadriel, and it's such a glorious costume. I think I've only seen it once or twice on somebody because it's...
Well, and we've got a question in the chat. You know, that's a coronation dress, of course. I mean, that's awesome. But this Galadriel dress tells a better story. So how do you weigh it? How do you weigh that?
I kind of agree. You know, like this one is the beauty of the costume and the intricacy and the challenge of making it and the beauty of the fabric versus telling a story for me. Because, you know, if you look at like this picture of Galadriel, the dress itself is just part of it all. Whereas, you know, with Arwen's coronation, it's all about the dress. So I agree, you know, that would lean me that way, except that I don't like dark Galadriel, but I haven't voted yet. So I'm not sure, you know, how I'm going to, in this particular round, I couldn't tell you how I voted because they draw me in different ways.
Honestly, who wears that color green to a coronation? I mean, come on. Just the color itself is a disqualification.
Well, I will say part of it is because it's spring. Well, it's probably early summer by the time they get everybody gathered together because the ring, you know,
on the 25th
goes away in March, and it takes them a few minutes. So it is kind of evocative of a rebirth because, you know, everything's been so dark and whatever. So I can understand the coloring. I
can't because up to now, for the previous 2 movies, I've associated shades of lavender and purple with Arwen. Even in the deleted battle scenes at Helm's Deep, like I just associate shades of purple and its related colors. So her showing up in this green dress is so out of character. It doesn't do it for me. I'm sorry. Jim, you got any opinion on this?
No, I think you guys have got it. For me, the Galadriel dress does not work quite as well. When you think about the debate between Gimli and Éomer, and Éomer says that he is favoring the beauty of Arwen, and Gimli is favoring the beauty of Galadriel. And what Éomer's response is, you've chosen the evening, and I've chosen the evening, you've chosen the morning, and so it's not really an evening look,
right? Look, and again, people in the chat room say blame the costume designer if you know.
Well, and for me with Dark Galadriel is you're seeing the warrior. I mean, she's one of the most powerful beings in Middle Earth, and you're seeing that power, and then she pulls back.
That is her idealized power.
Yeah, you have to see. Yeah, you have to see that she embodies. You know, to be, you know, terrible as the dawn, and you know, beloved and whatever. I forget what that line is, but it's that she would be worshipped and beloved, but also be terrible.
You
terrible
know,
as the
you know what?
And but you can't have the good and the fact that she becomes Galadriel and she gives up that power. I mean, she's literally giving up the ring. And she's giving up the power that she's had to become just Galadriel.
My theory is in the Amazon show, Sauron implants that thought in her head of like, this is take my ring and you will become more powerful than the like everything that she says in that line in that scene is what Sauron whispers in her ear.
Which they could do, but that really just flatlines Galadriel's history.
Yeah.
You know, so if you look at her history throughout the Silmarillion and everywhere else, you know, it's not the ring is certainly a turning point, but it's one of many for her.
So you're telling me that if Sauron and Galadriel start dating in the Amazon show, it's you're going to be turned off?
Not her storyline.
Don't even.
The one thing I'll say about Dark Galadriel, you can get both of those figures, both the Lothlorien White Galadriel and the Dark Galadriel, and they're happening in the same instant. And it's fascinating to look at those two figures side by side, because there's transformation that's going on. There's some obvious, even in the jewelry, that sense of power and threat comes through in that Dark costume.
Yeah.
Really
and the way she's speaking to Gandalf at the time is, you know, get him out of here and stuff like that. It's almost like whenever you've seen a transformation of, say, like the Wolfman or something like that, when like the moon is full and they're cognizant for a moment. You know, like Lupin says this to the kids: "Get the kids out of here," and something like that, because he's about to turn into a werewolf. She's cognizant that she's becoming terrible, and that they need to get Gandalf out of there.
I don't remember Arwen's dress here. Can someone place this?
So
The
this
blood
is
red dress? Okay.
yeah,
Okay. When she drops the book, that's what she's wearing.
Mm-hmm. Her moment with her father.
She drops the book. He comes over, feels that her hands are cold, and that the immortality is leaving her. And you know, Charwin wore that.
Yeah, that's Charwin's dress. I know.
Yeah, so that's what the blood red dress. Even though it's a deep navy blue dress, the sleeves are that blood red, and so it got the name blood red dress.
So that scene is the most teenage Riverdale type scene in the whole thing.
Yes. So, but then you have Tariel, you know, on the right, and you know, this is the first time you see an elf woman who is not, you know, part of Riven, you know, the royalty, the Galadriel, the Arwen. You know, you kind of see like she's probably like maybe some of the more, you know, obviously she's a woodland elf, which is different, you know, than a Lorien elf. But
She's a warrior. Yeah, she's a warrior.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a completely different look. We're finally seeing what a woman would look like.
Is this what you expected from a warrior elf woman?
I expected them to look exactly like the men, only with boobs.
Yeah. It's not unexpected. Obviously, she's a brand new character that they made up for the movies. But I think they did a good job fitting her in, you know, the forest.
Doesn't
you know,
she
the woodland elf.
look like Robin Hood? I mean, come on.
Well,
No,
of course.
because she's not
but
wearing a what?
There's a reason why Robin Hood looks by the way he is. He lives in the woods.
She's from the woodland realm. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're going to wear
that's
green
why-
and brown. Yeah, to
That's
mix
why
in.
Aragorn is wearing deep green. Faramir and all of his band of rangers are all wearing greens and browns. I mean, it's just sort of what you look like when you're trying to blend into the trees.
I don't know
Yeah,
the where for what the purpose of these two costumes are. All I see on the left is teenage angst, and on the right, all I see is badass warrior elf. And
There you
it's
go.
Well, and what's really cool is look at where she's wearing her quiver. She's wearing her quiver at her side, not on her back. And that is a more accurate way of wearing when you want to be able to get at your arrows quickly for quick firing.
There you
Yeah. And so again, going to the costumes as a story, I see a beautiful woman in a beautiful gown, and I see a warrior. So
He just happens to be a
Tariel tells me a story.
Yeah.
yeah, totally. That Arwen's costume is just impractical. It just looks looks
Beautiful.
angst.
I mean, that's one of the challenges of Arwen as a character is she's just there to be beautiful and marry Aragorn. And I think
Yeah.
that's why they tried to put her at Helm's Deep, and it just didn't work, thank God. But,
Yeah.
Yeah.
she doesn't really, like, Galadriel had a role. She was in charge of Lorien with her husband, with Celeborn. But, Arwen has no role.
Yeah,
No,
and
she's window dressing.
look
Yeah.
at the tones of green and brown in Toriel's outfit. I mean, they are just so blended into her environment.
Yeah.
Nothing about her stands out, which is the point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Here's
So,
one thing. For those of you who want to do a screen accurate Tori, apparently Evangeline Lilly said, "Give me the biggest elf ears you've got," and so she's got ginormous elf ears.
that's
cool.
That's so good. All right, next one.
So that is okay. So that's the dream dress for Arwen, and that's the dress she's wearing when Aragorn has fallen with the warg after that battle with the wargs and the Rohirrim, and he's fallen and he's unconscious on the side of the river. And this is the version of Arwen that comes to him in that dream, which then turns into a kiss by the horse.
Right.
There is
right.
no
And of
way,
course, yeah.
there's no way that Thranduil loses this battle.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
know.
know. And this one doesn't even show the full outfit. I mean,
That's-
because he's
yeah.
got more than one of these, but with the outfit and the dress and the way he gets up there and he just kind of throws the cloak over the
Yeah, I
arm
don't think you can say
throne.
Thranduil without first off saying awesome. So, yeah.
Awesome Thranduil. Yeah.
When I saw this
Yeah,
outfit on Arwen, all I could think of was the singing sisters in Hercules.
Yeah. Again, it's a beautiful woman in a dress. Beautiful woman in a beautiful dress. The other guy is a king. You don't even have to
Yeah.
know any backstory. He's a king.
He's a king, but he also could walk any runway in Paris.
And look how he crosses his legs. Just the power in that man.
Yeah.
Well, and he does it when he flips his cloak over. I mean, it's
Yeah.
when he
The
walks up those
fabric
steps.
on his cloak or whatever he's wearing is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Everything about him is gorgeous. Next.
Yeah, well.
Gorgeous.
Jim, who are these people?
Yeah, so it's the classic Legolas Greenleaf in his, I guess it's the Rivendell appearance. So this is the first time we really see Legolas ready to go off on the quest in his woodland realm outfit. And then an interesting entry for number 11, kind of a sentimental fan favorite.
This is a sentimental Torn favorite, Torn message board favorite.
Frodo is great. Who is that? Figwit. So you kind of see him in glimpses at the Council of Elrond, and you see him again when Arwen's on her way to the Grey Havens, and he says, "What's
Where
going
where
on?"
did the name Figwit come from?
It means Frodo is great. Who is that?
So
Figwit.
Kathy and I both were on the message boards when this actually happened.
Yes.
Wait. So
They were,
his name came from the One Ring message board?
yes.
Yeah.
He has no he got a line later on because the character because he's the elf standing behind Elrond during the council, and that's where the Figwit came
That's
from.
where it all started.
Yeah, it came from that, and I believe they put him into this scene where
Because-
Arwen is on her way to the Grey Havens, and he's the one that says, because she stops and he says, "My lady, it's time to go," and she looks at him and then she turns away and rides off. And I don't think he would have been in that scene if it hadn't been for the Figwit movement.
So some people on the message boards, this was the early days of Fellowship. We were all falling over ourselves to talk about what we had seen, what we had experienced, and the Council of Elrond was part of it. And a couple people singled out, this one character at the council saying, the whole idea was, yeah, Frodo's beautiful, but who's this man over here? Who's this, And it became a quest because he wasn't credited in the movie to find out who he was. And they learned that his father was Isildur. The character, the actor's father is the actor who played Isildur. They learned more and more about him, who he was, and now we know who he is. They went to Edinburgh, where he played at Fringe with Jermaine, and met him and said, and it just hit the internet somehow that this beautiful a nameless elf, and he became Figwit. So it's all because of the message boards.
Well, it wasn't unknown. Brett McKenzie is part of the Flight of the Conchords. He mostly wears a beard, so the fact that he's shaven is here. And he becomes Lindir in the Hobbit series.
Mm-hmm.
Not only is it a line in the Lord of the Rings, but he actually gets a bunch of lines and has to speak a bunch of Elvish.
Well, bringing it back to the costume, I hate to admit it, I love the textures of Figwit, and I love that robe, and it's everything I hoped for in a Tolkien elf that is departing the lands of men for the West. Like, his outfit is just perfect, and I want it, and I want to watch it.
Well, and what's really beautiful is the costume that Arwen is wearing in it, because she's got her cloak on over the dress, and then when she runs back to Rivendell and she drops the cloak and it sort of just flies and flutters off onto the ground behind her, and she's wearing that light blue dress, which is in this contest soon. But I love both of them because the cloak she's wearing, because it practically covers her whole horse. It's just an amazing cloak.
And maybe because the Legolas is so iconic. We've seen that stance, that costume, everything about that many, many, many times. So there's nothing at all bad. It's just that I agree with you is, Figwit's cloak, the fabric of that, the drape, just the whole demeanor is special.
Yeah,
it's very elf.
Legolas just looks like he phoned in his shorts.
Figwit is great. But
I'm blonde and I'm beautiful, right?
Yeah, Frodo is great. Who is that?
He's not going to beat Legolas.
He's not going to beat Legolas, but since he's at Lindor, he's in the competition later as Lindor, so that has another choice.
All right, this is an interesting one. This is a tough one. I am totally. I don't know who to vote for. Does someone want to convince me to vote for the left?
Well, Haldir. Because Haldir doesn't die in the book, because Haldir and his elves don't go to Helm's Deep. But when Haldir and his elves fell at Helm's Deep, there was this huge outcry of Haldir lives, because of that. And plus everyone liked Craig Parker. But his armor is quite spectacular.
Yeah.
It is.
In fact, all of them, the whole troop is quite spectacular.
Yes, agreed.
It's a tough matchup because we don't get to see it in this picture so much, but there's some really wonderful colors. There's a deep red as part of the burnished armor, and so it's really a beautiful costume. And then Seven is Grey Haven's armor. This is when she comes back and she's got a beautiful cloak and she drops it on her way up to go see her father.
We need to get a picture of the cloak as well, because that cloak is fabulous.
But again, the fabric similar. If you think back to Figwit, they both had kind of similar fabric. That dress is beautiful.
Yeah. And it tells more of a story.
The velvet, particularly because again she's got that riding cloak on, and it's draped over the horse and everything like that, and it's just beautiful. I mean, they're all cloaked because the entire band is all cloaked. That is going through the woods, and it's similar to the band of elves we see Sam and Frodo see. is that they're all in cloaks, because when they're traveling, they're all in cloak, and it's all velvet and shimmery, and it's all these kind of somber, these blues and grays and the light colors.
So-
I mean, none of them are wearing bright colors.
So why should
I don't think there's an easy choice in this for these two. This is not an easy choice.
Yeah, but I'm going to vote for Helder.
Oh, that
I mean, I
dress
don't know
is
who I'm gonna
so
vote for
good. That dress
Because
is
Arwen has
so
options.
nice. It's but that dress is Arwen. Is that dress Arwen?
Yeah,
I think that's the.
I would
closest
agree.
dress
Yeah.
it is. Yeah. I
Like
think-
not the green dress. This dress is Arwen.
Yeah.
But
Because
that
the one also
armor
wears-
is Haldir and the entire race of elves.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Well,
wow!
another alliance when the elves decide that. I mean, obviously it didn't happen in the book, but in the movie version, you've got an elf honoring the alliance, and so it is kind of powerful in that respect, even though it's not canon.
I gotta take away points from Haldir because his armor wasn't good enough to save him.
Well, you know, all of the not a single elf survived that battle, but then again, since none of them were actually there, that's not
The
surprising.
cool thing about that Haldir costume too is we've seen him at a lengthy exposure in his kind of woodland costume. So when he shows up at Helm's Deep in that armor, it really is kind of a breathtaking.
It's a different, it's
Yeah.
different. I mean, because you're used to them, what they would be like in Lothlorien because they're like ranger elves along the border of Lothlorien, and you're right. So he's in that woodland outfit, and you're right. It's a big costume shift and a personality shift of I'm here to do battle.
last matchup right here.
Yay!
Why does Elrond get a 2 seating on this one?
Blame this One Ring staff, I guess.
This is
Yeah, it's all
this
us
is the
too.
council. This is our first. I mean, well, because he wears this both at the council and I think like when he's having his discussion with Gandalf, isn't he? I mean, or does he have a costume change? I don't think he does. But this is his council outfit, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Although actually, this looks like it's actually the farewell because there's a bunch of people standing behind him. I have a feeling this is actually when he's farewell.
Yeah, that could be but I mean, it's just, I think it's beautiful. I think part of it is it's difficult to see Arwen at all in that picture. But
It's hard to
there's,
find a picture of her in that.
it was
cut.
hard. I mean, a lot of the running, the horse running pictures, you get some idea of the costume. It's really hard to see the costume in that sequence with her. But, Elrond, just definitely Lord of Rivendell. He's the guy in charge.
Everyone in the chat room says this is Arwen, not the last one. This is their favorite
interesting.
Arwen.
Yeah. Well, this is because it's the first time we see her.
This is not Arwen, this is Glorfindel, but
Yeah. Well, you know what's funny is when she gets off the horse and is walking towards Frodo, and he's seeing her, and he's like fading into the Shadow Realm, and he sees her in a different outfit than what she's wearing.
Yeah, that's
I
right.
kind of believe she's wearing that light green that almost looks like the wedding dress
Yeah.
because she's
It
wearing
is
something
interesting,
very
yeah.
light and very different. And then we sort of switch back to then Sam's point of view and see her in the riding garb.
So, yeah, I mean, I think to me, this is always like, they had to give Arwen something to do. And this is what, so I get it for people that, saw the movies first and didn't read the books, but, I guess I have trouble overcoming the situation she's in, whereas Elrond is in his element. That is who Elrond is.
Yeah.
I can tell you I hadn't read the books when I first saw the movies, and when they go to those helicopter shots of the Black Riders chasing Arwen on a horse through the flatlands, I almost cried. I'm like, I've never seen this. I've never
I totally get it.
seen this
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I completely get it. Yeah.
And what's funny is Glorfindel's the one that finds him, but Glorfindel, I mean, Frodo rides by himself. He puts him on the horse and tells the horse where to go.
Yes.
And Frodo has to make it there on his own.
Yeah. Frodo is not quite the frail, because he's the one that stands up, at the other side of the ford and says, you shall not have the ring nor me.
Yeah.
So it's just a different. I understand cinematically they did an incredible job with that.
I
Yeah.
just
But again-
and then the way she like brings the horses of the river, and it's just there's so much power associated with this outfit, and it flows.
Yeah.
It flows on horseback at the speed of the horse. Like
Yeah.
it's just
And it's shaped like the horses. I think they did that brilliantly, because that is in the book, the shape of the
Because this looks
water in
like-
the shape of horses.
This looks like what Arwen would wear when she's not having to be dressed up for court.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
all the other dresses are dressing up for court. This looks like it's a more comfortable, casual outfit.
And kind of more like what Tariel wore.
Yeah, exactly.
I just want to talk about Arwen's dress, but you're telling me that this is Elrond, and if you're going to vote for anything Elrond, this is the one to vote for?
No,
Although I don't think that's the right picture, because I don't think that's Council Elrond.
but it's still,
He
it
was
just,
wearing- it was
it's
more velvet.
comparing these two. I haven't voted yet, so I don't know.
Oh
Yeah.
man, this is a tough one, but I just remember the emotion of seeing the way she's introduced to us, and she's wearing this, and then the chase, and then her power, and it's like all of the pretty dresses that we've just went through and watched. That isn't Arwen to me. This is Arwen.
Yeah.
But we're
Yeah.
judging
Good point.
judging the costumes. We're not judging the character. We're judging the costumes.
Our
So
emotional reaction to the character, yeah.
so Elrond's costume is just regal. I mean, you can tell just by looking, like black out his face.
It's still a king.
You know he's not only a king, he is the king, right? Like you know. So there is power and grace in his outfit, unlike any other outfit we've seen tonight.
Yep. Except for maybe Thranduil. I don't know.
Yeah.
Thranduil is, he's more diva, but yeah.
Young
Although
Elrond.
I think Thorin would give him a run. You know, that picture of Thorin on the throne. I'm like, oh, he's playing Thranduil, isn't he?
Young Elrond in Amazon show better be just the best dressed we've ever seen in any fantasy show. Like, that's the legacy to live up to.
I suppose it depends on whether or not they're going to be fighting, or whether they're going to be, in councils and in study. I mean, it's like what role, what are they doing as to what they're wearing?
Probably. That is the 64 contestants for round 1 of Middle-earth March Madness. There are 5 rounds of voting. This is the first one, so you can go to the onering.net, or you can type in that nice little bit.ly link that you see on screen. You can vote. Tell your friends to vote. Tell your kids to vote. Tell your dog to vote, because on the internet, no one knows you're a dog. We will be calculating these over the next 2 days, and then we will come back with a review and a preview of who wins this round. And I can tell you from years past, people get voted out early as an offensive measure to get them out early, because you can see how it's going to play out. So don't just vote on the one each match. Vote on the grid. Look at the whole grid. Look at who is potentially going to win each match, and then see if you need to defensively vote someone out early. Like,
more strategy I was thinking about, but yeah.
we're talking 6D chess here, okay? Like, guys, let's
You see who's coming down the pike, two rounds later, particularly in the elf category. It's like going, okay, who's coming out of that round?
And a great question from the chat: when will we know who won? And you can see right there in the middle of the screen, voting will end March 31st at 8 p.m. Eastern. And you know what? Let's
Tomorrow.
That's tomorrow.
is
So
that
tomorrow's for round 1. Round 1 ends tomorrow.
so? We'll
We'll need some
announce.
time to compile the votes,
Yeah,
I think.
It'll be announced probably on Thursday. would
Yeah.
imagine.
And so
No
what
fooling.
I think we'll just post the winners on the website, and then let's do another debate with the next round, but with better pictures, maybe some cosplayer.
Yeah.
So if you guys watching at home, if you see when you see the winners and you see who's going on the next round, go find better pictures than we just showed. We just talked about how poor some of the pictures are for the quality, showing the quality. So go find some cosplay photos. Go find some Flickr photos. I saw you post some links in the chat. That was great. But let's tag us on Twitter and Instagram and everything. Post it in the comments. Some extra photos so we can more accurately judge the next rounds.
We spent so much time arguing over who was going to go in, how we were going to organize this, that we didn't leave ourselves enough time to get good pictures. So this bracket, I think, was one of the more difficult ones we've ever done.
Yeah, totally. And Andrew says the show must be over pretty soon. It's lasted over 3 hours. We're just trying to keep up with Peter Jackson. He taught us well.
Well, obviously, the next round we're going to have half as many people, options. So next round is only 16 matchups.
Hey, is it a question from the chat? Is a single horse a maras or a mara?
I think I don't want to say species because it's not a species of horse. It's it's kind of like a Tennessee walking horse versus an Arabian. So I think that group is called maras.
Yeah.
It's one of the maras. That's who Shadowfax is. He's one of the maras.
Yeah, and it says.
She said.
Yeah.
What she said.
All right.
Thinking out
That's a
loud.
good
So.
question. That's a good question.
The singular
Yeah.
form of Maras is Mear, Mearh. And it's
Really?
just an Old English word that means horse.
Oh, it's an Old English word. Okay.
Oh.
Hopefully it's an Old English word for horse.
Well, it's an Old English word that, but Tolkien's prose, he says one of the merits. So it's linguistics versus dictionary, I guess, or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, this is Torn Tuesday. This is a 3-hour Torn Tuesday, and we did it without Cliff. I can't believe it. Thank you all for joining us. We will.
Round one still if Cliff was still here.
Oh yeah, for sure. So you know what? Let's find some cosplay. Tell everybody to vote. Share the link. Everything like that, and we'll do some more special live streams later this week where we can have further debates on and get into the real details of the stitching and the embroidery and the chainmail work, because that's what I really want to dive into. So I hope you vote. You vote with your heart, and we will compile the results in the next day or two. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Ann, Jim, Kathy, and this has been a wonderful Torn Tuesday. Middle Earth March Madness is here for the next couple weeks. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Vote Rosie.
Vote Rosie.
Vote Rosie. Yes, definitely vote Rosie.
Vote for Figwit.
And after we sign